Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Nystrom, and this is the Greenlight Weekend Podcast. Unfortunately, Philip is out of town this week. He is visiting his mother in Houston, but at least he gets to hang out with his mom, so that's cool. So, needing to keep this consistent and put out another episode this week, I put out the bat signal and got our boy David Oakley to come help co-host for me. And when David heard that, he thought, oh, fuck yeah, that means we need a guest. And he asked Wes Stein to be our guest. And Wes is the owner of Comedy Showcase Durango, the founder, rather, or at least one of them. And he's really doing a lot to build the local scene. And he's giving us a place to perform and get recognized like the next best comic of the Four Corners, the Four Corners Comedy Festival. He's really, he's given us opportunities, and especially those comedians that have been grinding for a while, Dave and Kate and Elliot and the people you know and love in the local scene. We had a really fun episode. I think we talked about religion for the first 30 minutes or so, but it really shows where Wes came from, you know? And we can all relate in our own way, and Dave was a little bit embarrassed of his religious past, but that's okay. We had a really good time. We talked about Comedy Showcase Durango. Go ahead and check them out, comedyshowcasedurango.com. Also on Facebook, Comedy Showcase Durango. And at Wes Stein on Instagram is where you can find him. As far as Dave goes, at Dave Olaughs on Twitter, Dave Oakley on Facebook. The Comedy Showcase Durango Facebook page is where you're going to find a lot of information about local comedy. So if you are local and you want to support the scene at all, go ahead and give them a follow, and it'll show you where to find that information. As always, you can find us at GLW_podcast on Instagram and Twitter, Greenlight Weekend on YouTube and Facebook. And we are also considering having some more musicians contribute to the podcast. If you're interested in getting your music showcased or just put out there on the podcast, go ahead and hit us up, greenlightweekend@gmail.com. That goes for sponsorships. That goes for any business, any communication, whatever. But yeah, as always, check out the Whiskey Reel podcast, Unreal the Real podcast, and big thanks to Hip Hop Trip on SoundCloud, Ethan Esparza. He's a brother. He lets us use his music, and we fucking love him. We really missed Phil on today's episode, but I think we pulled it off, and I think Phil will approve that this was decent. So, Phil, wherever you are, we love you, buddy. Be safe out there in Houston, and thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. And before I forget, every Thursday there's a show at El Rancho. It's an open mic hosted by our co-host today, Dave Oakley. And every Friday there is an open mic down the Rabbit Hole, the Old Lady Falkenbergs, if you're local. And that will be hosted by Elliot Weber and Dave Oakley. Come on out, give it a try if you want to do some comedy. And if not, just come show some support. That'd be awesome. Thank you guys. Enjoy the episode.
Give me some of that. What did you really bring it to the table, Jack? Get it chopping like a little lumberjack. Let the homie bring it back when I write a little rap, What you think about that? Yeah, I know you ain't thinking this swag. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to sound too cocky. I'm just feeling yep, alright. Yep, alright. Yep, alright. Yeah, alright.
Hey, boys. Phil's out of town this week, so we have co-host Dave Oakley and guest Wes Stein.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, hey.
Welcome. Taking on the co-host role. I love it.
I'm trying, dude.
David Oakley,
First.
man. What's up, dude?
Hell yeah.
So good to see you.
Congrats on your wedding anniversary.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, bro. Appreciate
It's pretty
that.
dope.
Dude, I'm so happy to see you co-hosting this. I listened to this, and it's cool to see you there. I wish Phil was here, but it's nice.
I
You're
wish
a great
Phil was here,
replacement.
too, because I feel a little bit more nervous, I guess. I never feel nervous when I'm sitting over there. I'm just chilling.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you have responsibilities.
Yeah, it's still just
You're in the center of the
It's still
camera?
just supposed to be fun. What's up?
This is
It's
cool.
still just fun, man. Yeah, it's a dope setup.
What's up? Yeah, this is
Say
nice.
that every time. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Any dedicated space is dope.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That's a big thing. Yeah, it just has to be a dedicated space.
Yeah.
Phil, he does a lot of his work here too. He sells a bunch of stuff online and does drop shipping and all that jazz. I don't really understand it, but he's always been smarter than me in that kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I'm just the shit
He's
talker.
the entrepreneur, huh? Is he?
Yeah. I mean, we've started multiple companies together.
Yeah.
And because I need that side of it, I'm really good at like getting shit done. Like if there's work to be done, I am that guy. You know, and I'll show up early. I'll fucking get it done. But Phil is really good at logistics,
Like ideas and stuff too.
Definitely. And with Coel helped us so much with our fire extinguisher business.
What is that all about?
So
I don't know if you've told me
every
about
company
this.
is required to have a certain amount of fire extinguishers, right? So they need to buy these fire extinguishers, and once a year they're required to be maintained. Every 6 years they have to be recharged, all the O-rings changed out, shit like that. So we did that, sales and maintenance, basically. And
You still do it, or that was just
nah. I realized real quick, if you're gonna start a company, you should be passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I fucking hated it, dude.
I had a buddy that did that in Durango, is why I was asking. He was in the fire extinguisher game for a while. He just had like one, he had like one red van, like an old shitty van, and like, I don't know, a couple hundred fire extinguishers and a few dozen accounts. And, but I think he
made
sold,
a good living.
He made a decent living, but I think he sold his accounts for like, a little bit
Nice
of money.
change,
And was able to like pay off some school debt or something.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, you can sell like the,
It seems boring.
yeah.
Like
It's boring.
like maintaining fire extinguishers. That seems boring. Yeah.
But it's simple and it's required. So when I got out of jail, I could no longer be a weed dealer.
Right.
Because I was being followed and shit. It just didn't seem wise.
Yeah.
So I needed a job, right? And I met this fucking crazy old redneck dude. And he was like, yeah, it's fucking brilliant. You know, it's required. And what you figure out real quick is you have customers that are cool with it and they want to stay up to date.
Yeah.
But when I came up here and started my own company, because it's not that fucking hard, so I was like, definitely do it myself. When I came up here and started my own company, I realized a lot of people don't give a fuck. And there's places that like literally a fire extinguisher from the 80s that hasn't been checked since 91. And they're like, no, I'm good. I'm not paying for that.
Yeah.
And it's the fire marshal's duty to go into each business once a year. That is their fucking job, is to go into every single business once a year. And this bitch would not answer my phone calls because I wasn't trying to rat people out, but to do business, you have to get their blessing.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I had to go over her head to Denver Fire Safety or whatever and get their blessing to do business here. But year after year, I'd go to the same places, and they'd, nope, we're not paying for that.
It's more of a mob business. You gotta have some muscle in that game.
Right.
You gotta be able to shove some people around.
Like.
That's the fire inspector. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta bribe him or her, and then you're good to go.
That's probably what it is. She's probably been bribing the fire marshal for less than you would have charged her. For the fire.
Kickbacks, man.
Yeah.
Kickbacks.
Yeah, and there's like big laws about how you're not supposed to be. The fire marshal's not necessarily allowed to suggest any companies or anything like that because it creates monopolies. Yeah, it's all on you, which is a pain in the ass. I don't know. Once I realized it was really hard. We were supposed to get purgatories.
I realized it was really hard.
Well, just to talk people into fucking doing what they're required to legally to have insurance.
Right.
You know, they're supposed to get it done, but whatever, nobody cares. But purgatory, I had that fucking account, man. I had it. And then the person that was in charge of that, big management shift up there.
Okay.
And then they got moved around. And then the new person was friends with somebody else that had a fire extinguisher company. So they just got it without a bid.
Yep.
And
that's how it goes.
So once I lost that account, I was like, all right, fuck this. I'm out. Like, we didn't lose much. It was $10,000.
Well, it sounds like
up.
you got out of a pretty shitty business anyway. So you're kind of lucky.
Right.
And like you said, there's so much value in doing something you enjoy that you really like to do. Even if you're not super passionate about it, you got to at least like it. Like your day to day.
Like I was just saying, like I don't mind waiting tables. Like so it's perfect for a day job for me while I pursue my passion.
Sure.
But if I just hated it, I mean, I would just be miserable all the time. You know?
Yeah, and I tell my wife all the time when we get bad service, like, you know, the comment that I make is like, if you hate your job, you know, you should probably go home because like you're giving you're giving the restaurant a bad name, you're making everybody look terrible and feel bad. I think you know, anything that I pursue that's going to require employees, that's going to be their training. You know, it's like you know, you can call in sick, you can call in like pissed off. You know what I mean? Because if you're pissed off and don't want to be here, like just don't come.
Like you said, it reflects on the business.
Yeah, especially like in the comedy business, there's no room to have like pissed off cocktail waitresses running around like giving attitude.
No way.
If we're trying to make people laugh, so like that would be a critical a component, like a big asset if you had somebody that was just naturally a good, happy person, you know.
Yeah, true that.
And I've definitely been to restaurants where I got shitty service or a shitty attitude or anything, and I'm like,
everybody
I'm never going back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I'm a really good customer, like a loyal customer.
Yeah.
Once I find a place I really dig, I'm there all the time.
For sure.
Like right now, Cassidy's Kitchen in Bodo.
Yeah, heard
they
good
make
things.
a real nice huevos rancheros. It's the only one in town that's like edible, being from New Mexico.
For sure, okay.
And I'm there all the fucking time just because of their huevos, and their service is amazing. And I was there this morning.
I have this. That's awesome. I have the same thing with my buddies. Have a cafe, a grill up in Hermosa Creek Grill.
Hermosa
I
Creek
love
Grill.
those guys.
It's
Best
the best
burger.
place,
Like I call it like the best burger not in town because it's up there.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's some good
So it's
eating.
12, 15 minutes away, right?
Yeah, yeah, and their breakfasts are amazing, and
The
their
breakfast burritos.
I'm on the bagels now.
Nice.
Like the everything bagel with like bacon, egg, and cheese. Oh my God, that is the coin.
I had one of their biscuits and gravy one time, and from being from Georgia, I've had a lot of good biscuits and gravy, and it did not disappoint.
No,
it was so good.
Yeah, we're from Texas, and my wife, she fucks with biscuits and gravy. That's her jam.
Yeah, me too.
Cheese and cheese, baby.
Yeah, with some scrambled eggs.
Yes.
And she's gotten to now putting avocado on scrambled eggs like every time, just because it
go.
just adds so much to the scrambled eggs. And
Sure.
extra little bit of
It's that good fat.
Yeah.
man.
yeah, gotta have it. No, they're good. I love finding local restaurants and supporting them. And if I find a place that I really like and I'm loyal to, and they make a few mistakes, I'll kindly like point them out and say like I would rather point these out and come back than just like leave pissed off and like never come here again, because you know you guys deserve that. But if it's something that I don't really care about, or if it's my first or second time and I'm not invested and there's just terrible experience, I won't say anything.
Well,
I'll just never show up again.
And they don't know you.
And they
yet.
don't know me. Yeah.
If you're a returning customer, they value your opinion.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, like with the grill, they haven't made mistakes yet. They've really they've grown in the proper way. Like they weren't trying to be too big too soon, and they knew they'd eventually need more dining space, and they added that.
Did they? Is it bigger than it used?
Yeah, because they made more. They converted that porch sort of into an indoor thing at one point, and then he just added onto the kitchen, built a big, got a new walk-in freezer out there, and added onto the kitchen.
Oh, good.
It's smart growth, which I appreciate, and that's how you're gonna make it. You know, people always try to have these vanity businesses where they want to live out this dream that they see in their head.
Sure.
And then they kind of kill their business to get there. And instead of just like being humble and saying like, I know I'm going to look stupid on the way to getting there.
Right.
And I'm willing to pay that price to like look like I don't know what I'm doing. Look like I'm growing. You know, that the public's going to see. And so most people like don't want the public to see that, and so they like spend all this money to make it look like they've figured it all out.
Sure.
And then they spend the next 2 years of their business, trying to earn that investment back, and then they can't, and they go out.
Go under.
Right.
And it's like, man, just be a little bit humble and say, I don't know really what I'm doing totally, but I'm passionate about it. And if y'all are willing to grow with us, like we can do something really cool.
Well, and the public sees that and they're willing to forgive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, all right, they're just getting started, whatever. If you make a couple mistakes, like as long as everybody's friendly and making an effort.
That's right.
And my number one sign when I walk into a place like Hermosa Creek is I see neck tattoos on the cooks, and I think, fuck yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, people with hand and neck tattoos cook better than anybody
It's
else.
true, isn't
They're
it?
amazing. Yeah.
At least they think they do.
Lots of practice. Yeah. But
That's
they're
cool.
damn good at it.
Yeah, they are.
And if you call in, like going to the mountain, you can't beat Hermosa Creek. Call in when you're passing Trimble. That shit's ready when you drive by.
That's right.
Green chili's hot. It's fucking.
That's right. And I like giving them a shout out because they were actually the very first Durango business to sponsor comedy.
Really?
When we brought Josh Blue in years ago, they we needed it catered. And I just love their food so much, and I knew he had an account with some food reps, and I was like, hey, can you get us some food? Absolutely. And they just bent over backwards to help us with all that. And
that's great.
They came to the show and like had a great time, and that was fun to work with them. And he asked me all the time like if what we're doing with comedy and how it's going and like how they can be involved and stuff.
Sweet.
So
Awesome.
it's cool to have like fans who are fans of the scene who also own businesses.
Yeah, that are on the.
Got to support each other and like
We partner up with them sometimes.
Yeah, to help everybody out and make things work. I think we have something that businesses want, which is a really loyal, rabid fan base of people who really like comedy and like coming to the shows and tell their friends about it. And I think businesses, could tap into that for
Right.
sure. And then we could also use their help in doing things like buying a PA system, or
right.
paying for banners to hang up on the stage, or bringing in big comics like Josh Blue.
Yeah,
Nice.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Hermosa Creek Grill.
Yeah.
If you're in town, check them out.
How long you been doing
Oh,
stand-up,
sure.
Wes?
Oh shoot! I think I think my first. I was actually thinking about this the other day because a Facebook memory came up or something. I think my first actual like stand-up routine was 2015 maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, a few years.
Something like that.
Sweet.
Maybe 2000, either 14 or 15, something like that.
Right.
But that was just a like snow down, joke down.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you do, like 5 minutes? Or did
Yeah.
you just tell a joke?
No, I did the 5 minutes. Okay. Like I did stand up in the 5th grade talent show.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because we were doing a play, and I was like the lead in the play, but there was an intermission, and so they were gonna do while we changed costumes, and they're gonna do a little talent show, like let a few kids come out and sing some songs and
Right.
whatever, and then the teacher was like, "Hey, could you do some stand up comedy during the talent show?" And I was like, "I didn't even know
What it was?
I was literally in the 5th grade, and I'd already seen like Eddie Murphy Raw and Delirious and all like Bill Cosby himself. Like, we grew up in the trailer parks in Texas, so like nothing was off limits or out of bounds.
Really?
It's kind of like the Farmington of
Interesting.
of
Okay.
Texas. So I'd already seen all that stuff. So when she said, like, in my mind, I was like, I can cuss and like say whatever.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was picturing you up there telling racial jokes.
But I actually killed, man. I actually ended up doing. I've always been kind of a mimicker and like impressionist, and so I or a little bit, but I had this like I do other people's impressions of people. I can't really do the person,
Right.
because I got to see kind of how they break it down, what the mechanics are. But in 5th grade, I remember I did Dana Carvey's George H. Bush Sr.
Hell yes.
But he was like talking about the Ninja Turtles or whatever, that was my whole bit.
I remember that, dude.
It was cool, and like I just kind of adapted it to where like it would make sense for a kid to be saying it, because I didn't know anything about politics or anything. So it was just like how George Bush was like, Splinter good, Shredder bad, just simple like. But the adults loved it in the crowd because they just thought, who the hell is this kid?
They probably thought you were pretty clever.
It was pretty funny, and but it was like standing ovation, like it kind of stole the show, and it just had everybody coming up to me after, like, oh, you're definitely gonna do this and that. So it kind of put it in my mind since that age that like I should look into
the ability.
that. Yeah. And then like my dad would mention it as I'd grow up, like and then like my buddy Justin, who you guys know that runs the show at El Rancho,
right?
He and I went to high school together, and he was actually our mascot. He was
Texas.
Yeah, he was the Springtown Porcupine, like in the suit.
Oh shit!
Best fucking gig ever, man. Like cheer camp, the whole nine.
I know y'all have known each other that long.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah, since we were like 15, 16.
Wow.
But so this guy like. I can't remember where I was going with this story about Texas and mascot.
We're talking about comedy.
About Justin.
Talking about comedy. Yeah. I would like help him with his skits and shit, like as the mascot.
Okay.
So like I was
cool.
doing like a lot of like I was the
creative writing.
Yeah.
You were writing for him.
Yeah, I was his writer. I was the mascot writer.
The mascot writer.
Kind of helped him get the gig because he had to audition for it in front of the whole school. And so like we stayed up all night like coming up with this sketch of like how he would come out.
Dude, that's
That's
badass.
fucking intimidating, actually. Like your first year as a mascot, you have to audition in front of the whole school.
With the other
and
kids.
You're 15.
Yeah, and it was the first time a dude had ever tried out for it. And this was back again, like in late '90s in Texas. Like it wasn't a very progressive time or state. Yeah. So and what was cool is like we were so creative and crazy and out of the box. Like nobody had ever seen anything like it. Justin like put shoulder pads in the suit. And like made it like the meanest, biggest thing you've ever like completely
jacked.
Yeah. So it like really changed the culture of our school in a way, and it like took our mascot and our football team and all that from like the porcupines to like the fighting porcupines.
That's
It was really cool. Like to this day, it's what it is.
What part of Texas were you in?
Outside of Fort Worth, in a country, country setting called Springtown.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I saw in your post
Shout out
earlier or the other day about how you were really into the church for a while.
Oh yeah, I was going to be a minister.
I grew up in a really religious church too, so I found that interesting. Yeah, do you think that also prepared you for stand up in a way? Like,
for sure.
Did you stand up and preach in front of big groups of people?
Yeah, that's a great question because the answer is a for sure, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
like Sam Kinison was the same way, right?
Yeah, I didn't grow up in the church. My wife did, but I came to it in that Jesus freak time, like the late '90s. when it was like really cool and hip because people
like
were
DC
doing
talk.
it was just a different liberal time for that movement, and it wasn't so like that attracted me to it.
I just imagine that'd be very prevalent in a small town in Texas.
Yeah, it was huge.
Christianity.
Oh, it was huge because I mean the biggest parties in our towns were at the churches after football games.
Really?
So like you would have to be there even if you planned to go to somebody's house and get drunk in the woods later.
Right.
You'd still be at that church party.
Sure. Yeah. It all began at the church.
Yeah, it's where you meet your girl and hook up, and y'all all go hook up in the woods or whatever.
You go slip her finger under the stairs. The
youth
group.
Attaboy.
Yeah. But we got into it. We were very serious about it, and then it was very helpful for me in that time of my life, and like coming out of what I had gone through as a child and like the way I was raised and all. And so it was like really nice. But then once it started being obvious that like I was being ushered toward a career in it, because of my verbose personality and gregarious nature,
stage presence.
Yeah, I did real well with the preaching part of it, and
so you really thought you'd be like a Joel Osteen or something?
Yeah, I mean not that much of an asshole.
I was about to say, even though he's a douchebag, but he's a performer. It was always in you. It seems like
I was getting called when I really quit at the top of the game. It was like, or at the height of what I would probably have done. I'd been on like the Trinity Broadcasting Network by that point. Like the Christian it's
network?
Like the one you see when you turn on TV.
Oh, wow.
Right. They have multiple now, but that was like the main one or whatever, and had been, like Christian bands like DC Talk and Newsboys and those guys, like, we knew all those guys, and like, I was getting opportunities maybe to go like speak at those concerts and shit like that. So like, they'd have a minister come out to like a Christian music festival. At some point, some asshole in sandals is going to come out and lead a prayer and fucking tell you about it. And so like, it was kind of like on that track to like being like the cool young, tour with these bands and come out and like get the kids riled up for Jesus.
That's cool because, dude, when I was a kid, those are the bands I looked up to. DC Talk, Newsboys, Audio Adrenaline. Like, if I could have met them, I would have been stoked as a kid.
Yeah, Justin's actually...
Justin's
really good buddies with all those guys.
That's
probably
crazy.
Still, because he's a roadie and toured with all of them.
Right.
He started in the Christian scene and moved into secular. But I don't know, man. It was a weird time, and then once I kind of turned away from all that, I found like definitely when I started doing comedy, like this is the same shit. It's a different
original
punchline.
thoughts.
Sure.
It's funny. Yeah.
It's original.
Yeah, it's like original thoughts. But I noticed like the emotion, the playing on the crowd and playing on the emotions, reading the crowd.
It's all the same.
Just all those tools are really helpful. I don't know if it's the exact same thing, but it's definitely like I was like, oh, this is totally doable.
So you were kind of honed a little bit before you started stand up.
Yeah,
that's great.
And I was embarrassed about it.
Comfortable. I've been coming for a year now, and you've never seemed uncomfortable on stage.
Well, that's nice.
Once.
Thank you. No, I was embarrassed about the whole Christianity thing for a long time because it really took a lot of years of my life that I wish I had back because I had so many opportunities to do other things, and I gave it all to the God and like just gave it. And I was like, oh. And then looking back, it's like I don't regret the emotional cost or the investment in that because I grew as a person and it made me a better person. Right. The values and whatever, but. Boy, I wish I had back the time that I spent in church trying to save people.
Right.
And it was stupid.
Do you think one of the things that initially attracted you to it was the opportunity for stage time and the community?
If by stage time you mean earning people's love and approval, yes.
Right.
I thought it was a great opportunity to, I had a pretty bad reputation in my hometown, and like I thought, oh, I can get redeemed, and like friends' moms will let me come stay the night at their house again, and whatever. So. It was like a new chance, I think I was probably a freshman in high school when I first started going to church, and I thought, these people are really nice to me, and they don't treat me like an asshole and like a piece of shit.
Not to your face.
Yeah, and so if somebody gives you a little bit of that, exactly, but if they give you a little bit of grace, if they can give you a little bit of leniency, sometimes it just takes one person to look at you and be like, I don't think you're a piece of shit, and you're like, really?
That helps a lot with your with your self-esteem.
Yeah, so I started really drinking the Kool-Aid, and next thing you know, I'm like out preaching, like I just really believe it. But like I would remember like reading the Bible. I mean, I would study it hours a day, and basically trying to go through seminary because I didn't want to go through college again and go through seminary. And so I was just really just trying to preach my way through and kind of prove myself with these amazing sermons. And like, I would like be praying to God and like trying to like reveal to me in the scripture what the wisdom is or whatever. But the whole time I'm just thinking like in the back of my head, so that I can preach so amazingly that people will say how awesome I am.
So like it was more about you were doing it more
Selfish.
for the praise for you more than the praise of Jesus.
For sure. It took me a long time to figure that out.
Right.
Because when I first kind of rebelled, it was a real rebellion against God and the church and everybody. And if you believe in that shit, you're stupid.
Right.
And then when I realized, oh, it's my issue, then it's like I can't, I can never tell somebody what to believe or what's good for them.
Right.
So I moved on and found my own thing and found my peace and now I do comedy.
That's great. Yeah.
So out of curiosity,
awesome.
what kind of shit were you doing that got you a bad reputation before freshman year in high school?
Yeah, I was wondering.
We have very similar backgrounds, probably you and I, but I don't know, man. We were real poor, so I think just poverty is
that makes
the number
people
one,
judge you.
I mean, and it's like,
well, and it makes you bored and it makes you go cause trouble because you don't have shit to do.
Yeah, and it limits your options, and it just, I don't know, just overall, I think poverty is a horrible thing, and we just did shit, we just stole shit. We were bad kids. I mean, just in the sense that like we were always just looking to do just whatever, getting fights.
Dude,
and
I
drinking.
remember being a kid, dude, and we would throw rocks at the school bus as it drove by.
Yeah.
That's what we did for fun when we had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So dangerous.
I think we've all been there. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but like
we tried to turn ours over. We would all get on one side, and there was a really sharp corner on the way
turn it over.
Yeah, and we would all run to the other side of the bus and try to get it up on two wheels.
Did you guys realize the repercussions of said action? Like
we never thought about repercussions.
No, dude, I was just like, this sounds like fun.
Just like 30 kids in a turned over bus going around the corner.
It was
that's what you call dumb and impoverished.
Yeah. So when I was I failed the 7th grade, and so in my second year in 7th grade, I was kind of like, I was basically the size I am now. So like, I just outgrew everybody and was like, the star of the football team all of a sudden. And my brother was 4.5 or 5 years older than me, and he was like a real football star. And then my sister was in between us, and she was kind of a crazy wild child. Like she was the one that was out doing drugs and partying at like 13 and just crazy. Yeah. And so I was kind of like really desperate for attention, like the youngest child syndrome. So like second year in 7th grade, I went out and like stole some like big touring mopeds out of a dude's garage that some friends of mine told me that they were down there, and he's like, he always leaves the keys on. But so we just went down there, and like me and my cousin and a couple other dudes like stole them out of there and like fucking rode them around town and like took them up to the school. We actually hot wired them, which was really awesome because a bunch of high schoolers showed up to check it out because they were just out driving around, running around. And here's these 7th grade kids with these pushing these motorcycles up, and they're like, the fuck are you guys gonna do with these? This is stupid. Yeah. I'm like, oh, ride it home. It's mine now. And they're like, what do you? So I crack open the ignition, casing around where the key goes in, and I see the ignition key, the back of it's just got 2 wires coming out of it. Right. So I think I bet if I pull those off and touch them together, this motherfucker will start, and it did. So I was like, I just like acted like I knew what I was doing. What's that?
Was that TV influenced or what?
Probably so. I think I just.
MacGyver. Watching MacGyver.
No, it was like not wanting to look stupid in front of my friends.
Sure. Right, just straight up peer pressure.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Like if I opened that up and didn't see those wires, I'd have just been like, oh, yeah, this is one of those that you can't hot wire. That's what I was figuring. I would have made some shit up. Yeah. But to my delight, it started up, and and they're like, fuck yeah. So they leave to go get like more gas for them, and so they go steal a bunch of gas out of local garages around local homes, which kind of alerts some neighbors and raises some eyebrows because they get noticed. But they bring the gas back, and where it backfired was what we couldn't fit in the mopeds. We poured around the track of the football field and lit it.
Savages.
Till it all went on fire. Wow. So there's like an apartment building next to the school, and they all see the flames. So like next thing you know, we hear fire trucks and whatnot. So everybody's hauling ass. And so my cousin jumps on the back of this moped, and we go, miles and miles out into the country where my trailer house is, and we stash it in the woods. And like, I don't know, maybe 3 months goes by, and then I'm just sitting in choir class actually. And
the same kid that steals mopeds sings choir.
Fuck yeah,
that's hilarious,
girls, man.
Yeah.
But Regina Johnson was her name actually. It got me into choir in 7th grade. But I got. And what was worse is like I was in choir, but like the 8th graders were in lunch. And then so like I get called into the office, and there's like cops waiting in there.
Oh no!
And they fucking handcuff my ass and like haul me through the lunch because it's like an open between the office.
They didn't have to do that.
So much street cred though.
So much street cred, but no longer allowed to come over to people's houses, and like, you know, it like made the local paper, and like my parents were excommunicated from the small town brood, and just so many repercussions, which as a 7th grader you tend to lean into. I didn't think I was that bad of a kid. I was kind of lost there for a minute, and that was a bad choice. But man, after that, then I became a bad kid, because then everybody had labeled, well, that's what he is.
That's what you were told you were.
Yeah, and they wrote me off like fucking another country, white trash country boy that gone awry.
Right.
And so I started living that out for just years. I pretended like I was really stupid. I just acted real dumb, and people would say, "Do Jim Carrey," and that's how I lived out my high school days, just doing Jim Carrey impressions and you know, being a dumbass.
That makes, dude, very similar. Yeah. Very similar. I totally get it. Yeah. My dad married into Mormons, and very, very nice people, but we ended up living in Kirtland, New Mexico, which is a very Mormon-rich community. And it was similar, like high school, like basically everything started and ended at the Mormon church. Wow. You know? And my brother was just like the fucking terror of the town, you know, like one of the 4. Yeah. At some point selling drugs and shit, just like constantly in fights, arrested, whatever. So we were automatically assumed to take on said legacy. Sure. You know, and I was kind of a fuck off anyway. I like attention. I like people laughing at me. Even if it got me in trouble, I didn't care, you know, just loved the attention. Cared way more about what my peers thought about me than any teacher. For sure. Right? So, just... Yeah. And then you start believing it, and you just fall into this pattern of just fucking up. Yeah. And school was so goddamn easy for me, not to be an asshole about it, but it just wasn't challenging, you know? Sure. And I could skate through. I'm not saying I was a valedictorian, but like A's, B's, you know, I was good. And I didn't have to really put a lot of effort into it, so a lot of my effort went into making my peers like me. Yeah. And just trying to make jokes and get girls. And there's always 1 or 2 teachers you can look back and point to and say, like, they saw it when nobody else did. Yeah. Sure. And they just one notice of like, I see you. Yeah. Man, that can be so important. I remember for me, it was Miss Temez in 7th grade, the 2nd year, was really trying to help me out because she saw something in there. But she realized what I needed was attention, and I'd never read a book to that point in my life, I don't think. And education was not valued in our house at all. It was like, you get a fucking job. Blue-collar work ethic. Yeah. And so my dad worked really hard, and then, you know, spent most of it on just booze and whatever. But he worked hard, and so he felt like he earned the chance to just come home and fucking drink all night, you know. But his older brother had like a master's degree, I think, in like chemical engineering, and he was dumb as a hammer. Like, he was just stupid. He couldn't change a tire on a car. He didn't know where eggs came from. But, you know, school smarts versus practical knowledge. My dad just thought if you were educated, you're an idiot, right? Like his brother. And it was hard work that made a man, you know, and owning land and all those kinds of things. So that was, you know, I don't know. So the attention part, it was difficult, and like dealing with him over the years, it was always my go-to sort of defense mechanism, was like just being funny. Right. So everybody was always afraid of their father, or like afraid of my father. I mean, friends, my other family members, whatever. He had a temper, and he was like one of these left-handed, like red-haired Irish guys, just real short and stocky, like a pissed-off leprechaun. Short fuse. Yeah. And God bless him, I love him to death. We're really close now, but you know, in those days it was hard. And I remember like being the first one to like kind of like mimic him back to himself. You know, when he would like
beat your ass?
No, he laughed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were fishing, and he always had this.
That means you did a good job.
Yeah, and he I dropped my fishing pole down. And he's like, "Damn boy, don't drop that pole in the mud. Goddamn, it won't work anymore. You don't break your goddamn thing." Like, that's how he would talk. He'd just get red in the face. Yeah. And I turn around, I'm like, "Well, goddamn!" I just started, and he just looked at me like, "What the fuck?" It was funny, great. And I think what helped was my mom was sitting there, and she laughed at it. And I think by her laughing, he always took up for her, and like whatever her mood was.
That's right.
And so when she laughed, he was like, "Oh, that's great.
That's
like,
funny." Yeah.
I think he almost saw me as like a diffuser for I was handy to have around, right? Because when he'd start getting pissed, I could like ease the tension in the room.
Wow.
But then that became my fucking job. Like, my whole life became like coming into the awkward situation and like putting everybody at ease, right? Gotcha. Which was like the whole ministry thing kind of fit, because I was like, I can be like the cool guy. Like, we used to go down to downtown Fort Worth, like Sundance Square, and instead of like handing out tracts and trying to get people saved, because we were like Jesus freaks, we would like go to the street corner where there was like a drug deal, or where like dudes were like freestyle rapping, and we'd like go rap with them or dance with them.
Yeah.
And not even talk about God, you know, just like get to know them a little bit and stuff like that. And then we'd invite
try
them,
to recruit them.
and then just invite them to church or whatever, like kind of soft sale.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just remember even that was like, it was an ego trip for us. It was an ego boost.
I got another one.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like we weren't out there for them, but damn, it made me feel good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and we succeeded with a couple of those guys. Like, they came into our flock and like ended up being big time for 4 or 5 years, like ministers who would go on to train and recruit others and just build this big thing. And like, I'm still in contact with all these people, and really none of us go to church anymore.
Right.
But all of us have a lot of wisdom gained from it, and all of us are doing really creative things. That dude actually is still teaching dance, and he's actually in Atlanta, I believe.
Sweet.
Now he wasn't, but he like has his own kids, and they're like all into dance. And but I literally met that guy dancing on a street corner in downtown Fort Worth.
That's pretty badass.
And then like, but I don't think either of us really believe in the same thing.
Right.
But like, we still have that connection
and it
from
was
back in those days.
due to
Yeah, and a lot of us do. I mean, my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like all these Christian bands that aren't Christian anymore, and these musicians are going on to do amazing things that like we're all kind of in that network, and it's really, really cool to see.
Interesting.
You know, it's fun to see like people shed their dogmatic beliefs and like get out of that systematic thing and just be like, look, I'm a human, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna do this, and we don't have to label it this or that and all that. Like, you know, it's hard. Even if I did believe the same things I used to believe, which I don't. If I did, I wouldn't call myself a Christian. That's a horrible name. Yeah. It's got such a terrible connotation.
Oh, absolutely.
And
historically.
Yeah. And so, and even like, I mean that in the nicest way, like sincerely, like I have very good friends who are Christians that don't go around waving that flag.
Right.
Because it misrepresents what they believe.
Sure.
Right. And a lot of it centers around Jesus being this little needle hole that you got to go through to get to heaven.
Right.
And that was the first thing that turned me away from it. Is I'm about to go into this huge career where, by the way, I'm going to make a lot of money. That's because a lot of my friends who continued down that path, they're all driving BMWs now, and they live in the nicest neighborhoods in Fort Worth. And their churches have 12,000 members with 3 different campuses.
Yeah, that'll make you rich.
So they're not even the pastor. They're like the junior associate executive pastor of Campus B, and they make $200,000.
They're driving Beamers to church.
That's what I was.
Jesus walked.
but you get my dilemma, right?
I do.
So whenever everybody else is in college or going to grad school or whatever, like I'm in the thick of that. And all I hear is people tell me like how talented I am and how great it was the same stuff from acting. I was like a state champion level actor in theater and like got full ride scholarship and all this stuff that I had to turn all that down to go into the ministry. And then when I got in the ministry, it was the same type of talent and praise that I was getting in the theater world, only now it was all for God. So it was like, oh, cool, because now I can defer what I don't want in terms of praise and like take what I do want, give God the glory for the stuff that I don't care about, and just it's a really great ego thing. Yeah. But then you start getting honest and like, wait a minute. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I don't believe it.
Not right, yeah.
It was hard. I mean, there were times where I was like, toward the end, I'd be like praying with somebody. People would come ask me like, will you pray with me? And then what they mean is like, come to the altar at the end of the service and like lead me to God. I want to get saved. I want to not go to hell. Right. And so that happens all the time when you're in leadership or whatever. And so I would do that 2 or 3 times a night, a lot of times on a Sunday night service or a Wednesday night service. And after a while, I just started mailing it in, man. And then eventually I just thought, I don't know, dude. Like, what do you want to get saved from? I would just start talking to him like really honestly.
Well, dude, now if we could get 2 to 3 converts to comedy every comedy night,
I'm an evangelist for comedy.
Yeah, dude, you should be.
I've done way more good as a comedian, I feel, than I did as an evangelist because, like I said before, it's not up to us to tell anybody what to believe. So that part of evangelism is just fucking stupid, right? Yeah. Like, you're a dumbass if you think that Islam is doing it wrong. You're an asshole. And if you say that's what Jesus says, I'm sorry, Jesus is an asshole, right? Because I'm pretty sure that wasn't his message. Right. But so the evangelism part of it is just fucking whack. Honestly, like, just forget that part.
Say Jesus exists the way they say he does in the Bible. Say he existed. I have no problem with Jesus ever. It's the followers that created the religion based about him, around him.
For sure.
And it's their distortion of the word of God. I mean, I mean, it's a man-made religion, so it's going to be flawed.
And that was
they pretend it to be flawless,
right?
And the Pope infallible, and it's just bullshit.
They were government for years. I mean, what initially I was saying earlier, what initially started that was first the guilt about making a bunch of money. I'm about to go down this path. I'm about to make a bunch of money. This is going to be my life, and then not really being sure of it. So I went to go study. I went to go. Not to get out of it, but to be like, damn, I need this. I need this lifestyle and reassure myself. I went to the library. I still have the book because I never took it back because it was one of these like reference books. But it was about like Native American religions and then how like basically how is that reconciled with like what we perceive as Christianity based on like the King James Bible and the Council of Nicaea and all that. And fuck, man, what I found, and not just from that book, from other sources, was basically like, first of all, the Indians either went to hell or they had a chance after the end times to see Jesus and account and atone and accept him or not. Right. But either way, they were fucking doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That was the first assessment that I wasn't comfortable with.
Such a narcissistic point of view.
It's horrible. Manifest destiny and all that bullshit.
Like the same shit for me too, man. Like one of the first things that got me, and it was like way too late in my life. I'm embarrassed to even say what age, but like, but where I was just realized like, dude, there's 1.3 billion people in India, 1.4 in China.
Yeah.
And none of them are Christian. Are you meaning to tell me that our God would damn a third of the earth to hell just because they're in a certain region that wasn't exposed to Christianity?
Right. There's not that much room in heaven, Dave.
That must be the
cut
excuse.
the numbers down, dog.
That must be the excuse. Yeah, but it just made
crazy.
no sense to me. I was like, that's okay. I'm calling bullshit now.
Totally. And that I guess that's what led me to really look into, okay, well, if that's the system, can I attack it from within the beast? Can I come into this and say, like, I'm going to be the radical, And so I tried that approach where I took different viewpoints than even my pastor did. And I would preach different things in different ways. Just what they would say is a bleeding heart liberal standpoint on everything that contradicted the Bible. So then I started looking into the Bible. And come to find out, like, this motherfucker was built by humans too. Because, the Council of Nicaea basically decided what shit to put in there and what not. Right. And they weren't sitting around meditating on it. These weren't men who were sitting around, holy God, tell us how to make a Bible.
People like
these were people who were
petitioning to get their books in the Bible?
No, it was more like think of like a politician, think of like if our Congress was presented with these holy books today, the Dead Sea Scrolls, all of these things, like, the Catholic Bible has more books than the King James Bible that Protestants use. So all of these, there's a bunch that are still not a part of that lexicon or whatever. But so they bring this council all these scrolls, and then the council decides for the benefit of the country what to include in this manifesto and what not. So it'd be like if our Congress today got all those scrolls and said, look, we got Republicans and you got Democrats, and everybody's at each other's throats. Can we assemble these scriptures in a way that solves that problem?
Okay.
That's basically what the Council of Nicaea did. I'll give you an example. Christmas, December 25th.
Right.
Very important Roman holiday before Jesus ever gets into the picture. Like, very important Roman holiday, right?
It was a pagan Roman holiday,
right? Which all the Romans were pagans.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And so, so this is a big holiday. Well, when the Christians are getting crucified like upside down for 100 years, pretty soon you have this division between like pagan Rome and like Christian Rome. And so at the time of the council, they're kind of at war with each other, the way Democrats and Republicans are right now. And so they took Jesus and said, look, Jesus, we could just say he was born on December 25th, guys.
This is important to you.
Right.
We add our story into it.
Right.
And
so if you
use ours.
Kind of to appease
Easter,
both sides.
Right. Easter is the summer solstice, or spring solstice. All these things coincide with like not spring. I mean, you know what I mean? Like the time of year, rebirth, renewal, all these things were just, I'm sorry to say, but compromises by the Romans to what would have eventually become the church that would eventually take over Rome and become its government, to the point where you have like popes ruling the world, as a political figure.
Yeah, armies. And
which gets really dicey. But I think it all goes back to those early days when Christianity was forming. I mean, I don't want to get all bogged down to it. My point is I studied that for the first time. Instead of studying the Bible, I studied like how the Bible was made and came to my own conclusions that like, this is bullshit.
Okay,
like
cool.
There's great stories. There's so much to learn from it. My God, if you read it every day, you'd be a wise person. But to say it's the end all be all of wisdom, that this is the way,
or the literal word,
yeah,
the literal word of God.
Yes, we heard that all the time.
Yeah.
So toward the end, when I was on a speaking gig or something, I started getting really persecuted for that.
Right.
And I remember at one point, I had a Bible, but I never used it, and it was like sitting on the stool behind me, and it was an outdoor thing, and there was a bunch of kids out in this little courtyard, and I was kind of in the middle, just on some like cobblestones, and there was the guy who hired me at the back of the room, like the minister or whatever, and at some point in my sermon, he goes, "Can you please stand on the word of God?" Like just pissed off as he could be. And it pissed me off, so I like went to the stool and I grabbed that Bible and I threw it on the ground and like stood on it. And like he came up and like grabbed me. And,
you were a comic all along, dude.
Yeah, it was fun. And he grabbed me and like took over and pretty much just shoved me off and took over, and they prayed for me and all this stuff, and then I left, and he's like, "You're not going to be invited back here." And like once those things started happening, I was like, "Oh, this isn't the path for me. I'm going to piss so many people off."
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I think if I'd have kept going down that and been braver, and I hate to say it, I don't think I would have been a good Christian, because ultimately I'm just an atheist. I just don't believe God in anything like any close to the form they think it is in that particular walk of faith. Because I really am a man of science. That's my big thing, you know. Post-Christianity, that's kind of a natural turn to.
Right.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
But no, I really wish if I had it to do over and I hadn't learned about science and was still kind of I guess just ignorant of certain things. Yeah, it's a good word.
Ignorance is bliss, man.
It's bliss, and I would have been like the anti-Joel Osteen. I think that I think there's a place for that. I think there's a place for like a sinner to be on Christian TV, telling people like, "Fuck, guys, I don't know what the fuck's going. Like, I'm not any better. I don't need your money. Like, don't send me anything. But look, if you're in trouble, like, let's pray together. If you're my friends who do that and they go to Haiti and do these mission trips, like, they're not trying to get anybody saved from hell or get them into church. They're trying to get like them food, right? So like, that's something to get behind. Okay. The problem is the only people we have at the leading that pack are the fucking Joel Osteens and dumbass priests that are molesting kids and all this shit. And it's like, man, my friends need to be the ones out in front, but they're good Christians, so they don't take the attention. They don't want anybody to know. They're not doing it for that. Right. And so I'm like frustrated from the outside looking in, and knowing I was once in there looking out. The big Christian bands, I'm not going to mention any names. It wasn't the ones we were talking about earlier, but those guys are getting lap dances after the concerts. Like, they're doing cocaine. Like, it's not any different than because you're in the Christian industry.
I kind of assumed so many people just took advantage of how stupid Christians are. They're like, hey, we can pretend to be a Christian band. And they're not, and there's good money in it,
they're
too.
not, and the thing is, they're not even pretending. They're just sinners, like all of us.
Yeah. So I see.
The problem is, like...
They're not pretending to believe something, though?
No. They feel bad afterward, and they read their Bible, they pray, they ask for forgiveness.
Oh, they do? Okay.
But the bottom line is, like, egos are egos.
Yeah.
And pussy is pussy. And when you got it thrown at you, even it doesn't matter. Like, Melissa was in a band, like, they did huge gigs. They signed with a label in Nashville, and we toured for a little while. Like, I was the sound guy and the opening act, you know, doing a little. But she was like just in the band, like doing background vocals.
Right.
There'd be 5,000 kids like doing like these big church camps and shit like that. 5,000 kids out there, big sea of them. They know every word.
Yeah.
And so when the thing's over, you're signing autographs and like, hot college girl, hot college girl, hot college girl,
right.
hot college. Just walking up. Oh my God, can I have your autograph? Oh my God, I just love you so much.
Christian
we
girls
can pray with me later.
They always were.
It was just
no offense to anybody. I've just seen growing up. That was my experience.
And I was married to my wife. We were on tour as a married couple, so it was great for us because we could just sit back and watch.
Yeah, you just had to observe how crazy it is, really.
Yeah, and the band that we were in, I'll say, were really nice guys. They were good guys. They were, and most of them were, you know, that. They believe their message.
I'm gonna ask you afterwards.
But they're just sinners, man. Everybody's a sinner, and so we're the one doing them a disservice by labeling it. This is a Christian band, or this is Christian music. This is a Christian music station. You're listening to the one. Yeah. That's so dumb.
It's just marketing.
It's just fucking marketing.
Yeah.
Mardell's bookstore was a big thing when we were growing up. It was a Christian bookstore where you could go buy the Christian music that wasn't in DC Talk or Newsboys, because that was all they had at Walmart. So you'd have to go to like a Christian fucking bookstore to buy this music. God. And I just thought, what a shitty... I
spent so much time in the Christian bookstore.
Did you? That's so cool.
No.
I mean, it was horrible, but it's cool that we have that in common.
That's what definitely, Duke. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm going to ask you about what band it was afterwards.
Yeah, we can gossip.
But I'm just curious. I just remember all these Christian bands are coming flooding to my mind right now.
There was a big movement of it for a while. Like there was a big
late
time
90s,
for it,
early
late
2000s.
where
I think.
exactly. Like
Middle to late
shit was
90s.
really happening in that scene, but I don't know, man. I think that's all built on a house of sand because what it is marketing, like you said. You're finding an audience that is massive, just massive. And as long as you follow these rules, you have them. You fucking have them.
Sure.
So like, name another segment of the world where as long as you preach X, Y, and Z, you have that audience.
Nowhere.
Like you can't do that in comedy.
It's blind support.
It's just blind support.
Fucked up. I don't like
just
it.
Like Republicans, if they're turning the dial on the radio station and come across somebody who preaches what they believe, they will stop and say, "I'm a fan," without hearing a fucking word.
And
they
it's
say.
not even necessarily what they believe. It's just what they're supposed to believe. What fits in these lines that makes you a Republican or a Christian or whatever. These fucking groups, these tribes that we all find our own. And so far, my favorite one is comedians because you can't offend these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Agreed.
Comedians is a fun thing for me because I think initially I got into it to feel better about myself because I knew I could make people laugh, and I knew if people laughed and I was the cause of it, that would be a good feeling.
Right.
And boy, was I right? Like the first
best
time.
feeling.
Absolutely, dude.
And especially like that first rush you get, and mine was like again at Snowdown, and the first year I did it, Justin and I were working together at the time, and I was just working on writing these jokes for like 6 months, and then I wrote, I don't know, I probably wrote 5 pages of jokes, and then I would tell them to Justin, and he would laugh at some, and he wouldn't laugh at some, and we'll go back and forth. But I ended up with like, 6 or 8 jokes that I thought were really killer, and only like one of them was stolen. You know what I mean? Like I stole one. I can't remember who I'll have to go find that joke, but I think that's pretty common with beginning comics. I even told my son like it's okay to use somebody else's material like your first time or two on stage to get used to it if at an open mic or something. You know what I mean? Like that's a great way. Like comics should not steal other comics' jokes. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
But
I think I know what you're saying.
And you might get called out.
And you might get called out.
Accept that.
But if you're interested in coming to an open mic and you've never done it before,
it's a good way to wet your beak, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's just to get up.
You don't have to do somebody else's set necessarily. I'm not saying come in and do somebody else's set.
No, I know.
But if you've heard an old joke that Sam Kinison or John Mulaney did that he's not really doing anymore, but you think it's hilarious, like throw it in there. There's people. I'm talking about your first time trying it out. Just because it's so fucking scary, right?
It is fucking
and just
scary.
to have at least one bullet in your chamber
your son
that you know that. He totally is. Yeah, he'll be making his debut very soon.
Really?
He's working on it. Yeah, he did this.
Well, how old is he again?
He's 15.
15.
Yeah, he did an internship with what is it? I don't want to get the station wrong. 99X. X-Rock. I did get it wrong.
Last year he filmed us.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he did this internship with school where he went to the radio station and like was like a guest DJ for a week or whatever and like intern. And so that dude asked him like what he was into and he's like comedy. Cool. And so I'm listening. I'm like, what? I didn't know this.
He's 15. He ain't talking to you.
And so next thing you know, the DJ's like, all right, cool. Maybe you can do some comedy for us sometime. And sure enough, the next morning, Turnan's like, hey, I wrote some jokes. Maybe I could do some comedy. And then the guy's like, right now? And Turnan's like, sure. So he goes out on like 99X, Durango. Hello. Jesus. But he goes out on the radio and like does this stand-up. Is that just in our headphones or is that?
Yes, yeah.
There's a weird dinging in our headphones for those listeners at home.
I think it probably got recorded.
Sorry, I don't think it's recorded.
That's okay. Now we're talking about it. That's being recorded.
I never sit here. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Right, you're not the engineer.
Yeah, Phil just told me how to open up this, and we're going for it. Sorry.
No worries. But anyway, he did this. He did 5 solid minutes on the air on a drive time morning show, and with no crowd, like just to the DJ, just like dead air to the DJ. The DJ just
awkward.
He's just kind of laughing every once in a while, but like, huh, okay, and then, like that going like through his routine.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there listening to it, like, of course, proud as punch, like, oh my god, like this is amazing, and like these are decent jokes, and like too bad he's doing it in a damn dry studio with no crowd. But I was so impressed, and then just moved that he took the time to like sit down and write some jokes and think some things through.
That's really
and
great.
The ones that didn't land and didn't have a solid punchline are still such good setups where I'm just like, holy shit, like
you help.
You give that setup to a room of comics, they'll give you 10 punchlines. He's got the right idea. And so he's been working on it, and my son's really creative. He loves music and movies. He wants to be a filmmaker or
I remember
musician.
him telling me that at the Strater last year. He wants to be a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think
That's
comedy
awesome.
I think comedy is another form of storytelling that he's interesting.
He could get into directing comedy specials even, dude. I mean, that's really a thing.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because we're about to do. I want to talk about this album we're about to do.
Cool. What's that?
Is that cool,
dude? Please.
Yeah. We got this Strater show,
right?
That we do every month, which we're about to do Next Best Comic. We should talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Circle back.
Thanks for directing this thing.
We
I like it.
Yeah, taking over the dudes.
It's all good, dude. Without Phil, I feel a little lost, to be honest.
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
I just talk. Phil steers it.
I've been lost for 40 years without Phil in my life.
Right.
But no, we're excited about the monthly stuff coming up. But one thing we're gonna do to like precede all of that is maybe record an album on April 27th is our next time at the Strater.
Awesome.
Cool.
And the idea is that, for one thing, like our fan base is growing with the Durango comedy scene, and it's time like we put some of the stuff on wax so we can move on.
Right.
I know Kate burned a lot of her stuff. I burned pretty much everything I've had just to keep it fresh and keep challenging.
You have to in Durango too. You can't just keep telling the same jokes.
I know, but you also
that,
have to get better at them, and the only way to do it is to practice them.
For sure.
Yes, it is awkward telling. Like last time I was at the Strater, I told jokes that I've been telling for almost a year.
Yeah.
In this small town, but I had to because I was preparing for.
I honestly
something
think
else.
I want to weigh in on this because I've heard this before as well. I honestly believe that there's a lot of different crowds at different shows.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Strater show has this older, like just comedy crowd that are just generic people in Durango that are fans of comedy. Whereas like
they could be the ones just walking by and be like, oh
yeah, or they're staying at the hotel, or their kids they got a sitter for the kids and it's a big night or whatever. But they're like 30s, 40s, 50s professionals, whatever. The people that are going to the ranch aren't
older.
that,
right?
And the people that are going to the MC aren't that either. And they're not the same people at the ranch. So I've like literally done the same material at different things and had
completely different
reactions.
audience.
Yeah, and just great reactions on all fronts.
Yeah.
But I do think I made the mistake of like the first year I was doing comedy in Durango, I would do a different 5 minutes every time. If I had a chance to do 15, I would do a different 15 than any 5 I'd ever done.
Oh, right.
And so the advantage is that I end up with like hundreds of jokes. Like I have just hundreds and hundreds of jokes. The disadvantage is I don't have a set. Right?
Okay.
I don't have a solid 5
you
minutes.
Go through
I don't have a comedy routine. I don't have a set. I'm literally counting on jumping up there, opening them with some quick comment about the room or the host or whatever, and then going into whatever the funniest 5 jokes I have on the top of my head at that night are.
Okay.
Well, that's no way to do comedy, right? You got to perfect it. You got
to act.
You got to and get that routine down. And so to that effect, I feel like the more chances you have with different crowds, which is why we are trying to get all these different mics going and all these different opportunities, because then you can do that same set.
Sure.
Now, when we first started here years ago, you couldn't. There's no way you could do the same set.
People would just
it was the same exact crowd.
People.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are still in that mentality of thinking, oh, it's Durango, it's small, can't do the same set. It's changing. The Strater, I'm telling you, you can go into the ranch and do a show, and then the next night we at the Strater, it's a totally different crowd.
Absolutely.
And even I mean, you've probably seen it going from the embassy over to the ranch. Different crowd. Like on the same night.
100%. And same jokes and
except
different
for the
reactions.
Comics. Yeah.
Yeah,
except
exactly. I guess the comics are the only ones, and I've heard this multiple times on podcasts and stuff, is don't play to the back of the room.
Right.
Because those motherfuckers, like, they've heard these jokes, so don't do different jokes to impress them. You're there for the crowd.
Right.
Like, the comedians are there to work.
If I'm going to Denver or Dallas or somewhere where I know one person in the crowd that got me on the list, but all the other comics, like all the rest of the crowd is comics, and I don't know any of them, I will scrap everything I've ever written
just to impress that one
person. Just to impress that crowd. Because I want to be like, I want to make the comics laugh tonight. Like, that's more important than working on my material.
Right.
Because if I'm traveling and I want to make friends and make connections, better make them laugh.
That's fair.
Than perfect this one ass joke that I've been working on. Like, that's a stupid waste of time. Instead, let me find out what makes these guys. And then when they come up to me after and say, it's pretty good.
Right.
Well, they know I was pandering to them.
Mm-hmm.
But
they do.
That makes you feel good. And you go, oh, that was really good. Thanks for doing that set for me. Would you like to come be on a show?
Right.
Or whatever, you know? I appreciate it as a guy that books. I like when people come and give me their absolute best instead of after the show saying, dude, I'm usually way funnier.
Right.
And if I have more time, I go into way more personal stuff. I'm just like, well, that's great, but you're still not going to get booked.
They
Sorry.
drop the generic shit on you.
You kind of blew your chance.
I just saw you on stage.
Right. That's fair.
There's nothing you're going to say that's going to change that. And so I'm either going to book you or I'm not based on that. Don't come to me and tell me you need more time or it was a weird crowd or you usually don't drink but you did not. Like, that's all stupid. Be a professional.
You're on stage.
You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that people do is like they're just rude afterward. And so it's like you came, you did your show, you got paid. And now you never want to talk to me again, or like you never want another job. That's fine.
Yeah,
right.
But just a thank you and appreciate the opportunity or whatever. Like like that goes a long way. And if somebody's kind enough to check in after and say thanks for the show, I had a great time or whatever, it just means the world. And you're just like, cool, that person's nice.
Right on.
But if you write them the check and they're like thanks and they leave and you never hear from them again, it's kind of disheartening. It's like, oh, I thought we had something going.
Right.
We'll talk about all of that. I just wanted to mention that with the album, it's about giving the local comics a chance to get some merch out.
So what's going to be the format of the album like? I mean, like you think like a joke per comment?
No. So what's going to be so what it's going to be is a compilation album of Durango comedy, and I basically want to have just a good solid representation of our scene.
Okay.
And so I'm really going to pick, like the
Yeah.
top 4 or 5 comics to come on and do a solid like 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I mean people who've like paid their dues and like have historically like been here a long time and like really deserve some merch, like trying to take it seriously. I know Elliot is working on a project, and I don't want to get into all that, but I know he doesn't want to burn a lot of material because he's probably about to come out with his own album.
Right.
And so
Right.
so he might have like a little smaller role than he would have if he.
But he deserves it.
Wasn't
Yeah.
So we're gonna
100%.
adjust for that, but I would love to have like the big the main core group of comics. I'm actually thinking of you as a host if you're into it.
Of course.
But we just want to we're bringing in Scooter Smith from Scooter's Place in Durango. It's like really, really good sound engineer. In fact, like a world-renowned sound engineer. I mean, he travels with bands and like really does some big venues and just really knows how to record shit and knows sound.
Awesome.
And he's got all the gear. So it's not gonna. I just heard a friend's debut comedy album the other day. I like literally like got online and like went through all the steps to like get it, and it was terrible. Like it just the sound quality. I mean, her jokes are amazing. She's really funny, but I was just so distracted by the audience
quality.
barely being able to hear the audience. They sound like they were in a tin can, like laughing in the distance.
Damn.
And then she was like up here like this.
Right.
And I was like, man, I wish you'd have taken the time to like get a decent recording and like get an engineer and like really do it right. So we're going to basically take all the money we've made off, the money we made off that show we just did.
Yeah.
That's all going to go into paying him and like really decking the place out with like crowd mics and like just the whole
dude.
Yeah, that'll
Do
be
it
good.
right.
That'll be good.
Yeah, and then working with the distributors, to like really make a quality CD, going like digipack, with the full artwork and like the whole 9. But then also being able to put it like on iTunes and CD Baby and all those things are really important.
Right.
Sweet.
What we're thinking is like, let's, initially I'm like, I'm gonna make a comedy album, right? Like I'm gonna make a comedy album. Like I've been doing comedy a long time. I'm ready. I got a good hour. I'm like ready to do it. Well, that's stupid. Nobody's gonna buy my comedy album, right? I could literally have it on iTunes for 10 years and probably not sell 300 copies.
Right.
So I thought, I bet if I made one about Durango comedy,
Smart.
and this isn't to
That is
be
smart.
selfish. I mean, I really, me, I'm trying to proliferate the scene and help everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that would sell better. And I think not only that, but then we could retail it to local businesses because it's going to have a barcode on the back.
Sure.
And so it's basically the CD cost me like $6 a copy to make when I'm only ordering a few hundred at a time. And that includes the initial cost of recording it. And so,
Sweet.
so
That's not bad.
if 300 copies for $1,800 initial investment, and then you can come back for $6 a thing. So I'm just going to pay all those upfront costs. And then my thinking was that the comics who are on the album we will float them the CDs at cost.
Right.
So let's say Elliot's going to go to Denver and do a show. He can just take 10 CDs.
Right.
And then if he sells them all at the show, he comes back and gives me $60 and he keeps the 60 in profit.
That's cool.
So it's a way to like give comics merch when they don't have the money to like go out and get merch.
Sure, absolutely.
And I can't afford to pay you for them and then go sell them and then owe
Right,
you
right.
and all that. So it's like we're just gonna like anytime that the comics on the album need copies of the album, we just float them, and then
that's what's up.
whenever you can pay us, pay us.
It's a really
That's
good
support,
idea.
dude.
But-
That's support right
Yeah,
there.
but then it gives me the chance through the Comedy Showcase Durango platform, which is getting a really good presence online, through things like podcasting and our live shows and all that, to start pushing the album through downloads and also at our merch table. And then so yeah, that's something exciting that's coming up April 27th. Awesome. We're gonna record it.
Sweet.
And I still haven't even really finalized, or haven't even reached out to. You're the first person I've asked to be on it, and but I do have an idea of some of the people. But I don't know. I'd like to hear some of you guys' thoughts of what are some of the local
right
comics? Yeah. And not to if we don't mention anybody's name, not to say they're not funny or whatever, but when you think of Durango comedy, what are the 4 or 5 names that come out?
The first 3 that came to mind were, well, I mean, I think you, Elliot, Kate, and Jill. I don't know if she'd
Jill's
be interested
powerful.
in doing it, but she's got a hell of a presence.
Jill Carlson,
yep. And then, those are the first 4 that came to my mind. And I was like, if you did 4 comics and did 15 minutes a piece of those 4, that'd be a good representation and a good kind of diverse group of comics too. I mean,
one person I really like that it kind of splits their time, but was around in the early days of the first open mic here and has been on several shows lately is Dallas Gwynn.
Sure, yeah,
she's
hilarious.
So funny.
She's hilarious.
And I just always have been so in love with her comedy since the first time I saw her.
Me too. It comes off so natural when she's up there, but beforehand, she's like, I mean, not talking shit. It's just how all comics are beforehand, nervous, but she gets real nervous, and then she goes up there and you can't fucking tell.
I know.
It's just she kills.
So something like that, I just want that good group. I was actually even thinking about maybe one of the Josh Fournier is a good example of a comic who, even though Durango's not his home, it's his second home,
dude. Dude.
We embrace them so much, and it's it'd almost be kind of cool to have one of them on the album.
I think
to show that our scene is inclusive of
Josh or Zach.
New Mexico, Denver.
And they're good.
Yeah,
they really are.
Oh,
good.
they're so good.
Yeah,
They're so
Mexico
good.
boys.
Yeah, that whole crew.
They work hard, man. I always see them on the road places, man.
Nobody
online.
Nobody grinds harder than Joshua Fournier.
I don't think so. Yeah,
nobody.
You're
right. Nobody in Denver, nobody in Texas, nobody in New Mexico. I know a lot of comics, dude. Nobody grinds harder than Joshua Fournier because he doesn't comics in Texas might do 5 mics a week, but that's because they can pick and choose.
Right.
Josh Fournier does 5 a week because those are the only 5.
5 mics.
Those are the ones.
Two of them are music
and he'll drive 4 hours for one
It's crazy.
5-minute spot at the ranch.
I love it.
I love it, dude. Yeah, his hustle is completely. That's something you want to work towards. Yeah, it's admirable.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what every comic needs. I mean, he'll be successful at this rate because he's just not stopping working, dude.
Right.
Yep. I'm going to take a hit of this vape pen so y'all talk amongst yourselves.
Sweet.
Nice. Well, I think your list of comics is super strong, and that was going to be another thing that I was going to bring up is I think it's a really good idea, instead of trying to do a whole album of yourself for an hour or whatever, to include yourself into a collaboration, because I do think you should put your material out there, obviously.
Yeah, you should be on there, too.
Minutes.
I mean, were you planning on putting yourself on
there? Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right. I didn't think you wouldn't.
Yeah. I'm not going to headline it or make a big deal out of it, but no, that's always been my MO with this whole thing, from the very beginning, has always been to create opportunities for myself, but always along with other people, always sharing it. You would be a dick if you just everything you did was to further your own career and you're gonna kind of trample on people on the way to doing that.
Right.
I would rather say, look, when I win, we all win. A rising tide lifts all boats. And so if I get a chance to bring in a big comic to do a fundraiser, that's kind of how I got started, was with that Josh Blue show. We did a fundraiser and had the opportunity to bring him in. What am I going to do? I'm going to open for Josh Blue and tell all the other comics in the scene, sorry,
fuck themselves.
This is my chance.
Right.
Because now my bio is going to look great and y'all's is going to look stupid because y'all don't have Josh Blue. It's stupid.
Yeah, and it hurts the show.
It hurts the show.
In reality.
And it hurts my future shows because it doesn't matter if it takes 3 weeks or 3 years. Sooner or later, people get tired of Wes Stein and Durango. Right. And so I need these people to help me if I'm going to build a scene. If I'm going to have more than one open mic a month, I need them. And so it's a very symbiotic thing. Some people say it's selfish. Some people say, oh, you're just looking out for yourself, da-da-da-da. Look, man, it's a little bit of both.
Totally.
Because we can't do it alone.
Balance.
And so it's just balance. And it's never sinister. It's never I'm twisting my mustache saying, oh, here's what I'll get out of it or whatever. It's just a natural thing. It was and the only reason I'm mentioning it now and addressing it is because there's definitely a little bit of trade-off with when you give yourself to something, you feel like all the returns should be positive.
Right.
But in fact, there's often going to be blowback or negative stuff. Because I noticed that like, there's certain times when people just treat me a little bit differently than before when we were all just comics. Like once I started booking the Strater show, it's like now, you know what I mean? It's like a little bit different, and I don't like
in a positive way or negative way?
A little bit of both.
Right.
Like, I get more opportunities to talk to more comics and get more opportunities to like find out where a good place maybe for me to get booked or for one of my friends to get booked, like maybe out of state or whatever, because people are interested in coming to the Strater. So that's the positive part of it.
But at the same time, you want these people to still be your friends.
Yeah, just be my friend.
Right.
And like honestly, like before the Strater stuff, and even maybe it was a little bit while we were starting the ranch early on, I just noticed a shift. And like before, when people saw me, it was like really cool, and they were like happy to sit down and spend time with me and like hang out and chat.
Just a comic.
Just another comic. And
right.
then after the ranch started going pretty good, and then definitely once the Strater thing hit, I started noticing like people would say hi, spend 3 or 4 minutes, and then I wouldn't see them again the rest of the night.
They're schmoozing you, not because they want to be with you, but because they have to.
They feel like they
maybe
have
a little
to.
bit. And this kind of even sounds assholey to say this, because I don't get that from everybody or even get it all the time. But it's just a little thing that I noticed. I remember a guy from Texas, a comic, came up, and it was actually Joey Johnson, who was just here. I don't mind talking about him because we're tight and he's cool.
Funny as shit too.
Yeah, super funny. Yeah, and he's another grinder and a guy that's like, he's gonna do really great shit one day. You know what I mean? Like I got my eye on him because I know, like when he figures it out, like it has nothing to do with his comedy. Like he's got to figure out shit for himself, but personally.
Right.
But as soon as he can like get happy and like and like start fighting for himself and for what he wants, like he's gonna do great things.
I see it.
But Joey like was the first guy to tell me like, dude, you run this mic here at the ranch, and like I don't think you realize how powerful that is. Like you need to tell everybody that.
Right.
And at first I was like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, I mean, he's like, I told you I have this. I'm a part of this comedy festival in Texas. He's like, you never would have put me up if I hadn't been with that comedy festival.
Credibility.
Because like you might want to come to the comedy festival. And if you'd have told me no, we're going to put you on at 1 a.m., then whenever you apply to my festival, I might not have taken you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just thought, well, what a shitty system. Like, I don't want it to be political. I don't want it to be like favors for favors. Fuck that. Shouldn't it be a meritocracy where the funniest comic goes on? Or like whatever, you know what I mean? I'm trying to figure it out in those early days. I'm trying to decide, is it favors for fit? Like, because I got a room, and if I put you on in my room, you get to put me on in your room. Like, there's definitely all that going on. That's assuming that you're a decent comic and you're funny.
Right.
Which I've definitely had people vouch or come in off the Facebook page or something where they'll say like, I want to come down and do, and I like go look and be like, like you're just not sorry, man. Like you're not having anybody vouch for you, and I've seen your video and you're not that funny. Like I can't just book you blind and be like, or whatever. But I'm just saying, like beyond that, like just the professional part, there was always this underlying political nature of it that I always hated.
That's everything.
I think maybe
though.
part of it though is just that we're comments like. Yeah, we can be assholes and stuff, but we're genuinely like the best of the comics are actually pretty nice, Yeah. And so I think what it isn't even so much as a give-take thing as much as it is I will just feel so much more inclined to help out somebody that was nice to me.
That's right.
I think that's how it is. Like with Joey, for example.
That's
like,
what he meant.
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
And yeah, absolutely. Like Joey wouldn't be in Sinister, but I think there's a little bit of both.
But I've seen both. I've seen the other thing too. I've heard it at shows.
And our scene, we are really blessed that we all really just like each other, and we want everybody to succeed.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I want all of these comics to do well. Like, oh my gosh, like. I would be so proud if like any one of us like made it nice and we could just be like, dude, they came from Durango.
Yes,
totally.
I know. I think
used to do mics
sometimes.
with that person.
Yeah. And honestly, like it's still my ministry. Like that's still a part of what I want to do is like give that service. Like how rewarding to invest your time in someone and be a part of their journey and then see them going to do great things and be like, little pat yourself on the back. Like I had a hand in that.
And you would, exactly. You did.
That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And so in our scene, we're really, really lucky. But everywhere else, that's not how it works.
Cutthroat.
Seems pretty competitive.
It's pretty
from what I
competitive.
hear.
And so it's like, get on my show, put you on your show, put on this show, da-da-da. So because we're in a little bubble. Yeah.
So here it's about being nice.
Yeah.
But everywhere else it's about favors.
That's right. And so
I got you.
Earlier when I was talking about people treating me differently, whatever, I am talking about the local scene, but they're doing it in the nicest way because they don't even know that they're doing that.
Right.
I think what it is almost like an intimidation thing of like, feeling judged because I may be thinking about who to put on the next show that night, and so everybody's a little bit
People
thinking,
worry
like, I
about
want to
that
be on
shit.
the
Oh,
show.
like if you're in the crowd?
Yeah, or if I'm just hanging out, they don't want to say too much or come off as needy, or and it's like, man, I just want somebody to have
Just
chill
hang
with
out,
and
man.
have a conversation
That's
with.
definitely how I felt when I saw you. I was like, I have to
Ooh.
be funny or Wes
Oh.
won't let me on any show.
That's hilarious.
That's actually why you're on this podcast.
That's kind of a
I'm gonna need to be
compliment.
on some shows.
Yeah, okay.
It's a compliment, but
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
no,
That's
okay,
not really
good,
how
okay,
I felt.
okay.
No, I'm good.
I
Very
tell
honest.
comics all the time that we bring in, like when they're done and we're saying our goodbyes, I'll be like, so you did like everybody, right? Like you liked me, you liked all of us. Did you like that comic? Did you think he was funny? Like you thought I was funny though, right?
Right.
Like I'll make damn sure to get my validation of like, look, we don't get traveling comics coming through that often. When they do, we want to be judged. We want you to let us know like
Right.
how
That
we
makes
doing.
sense. Yeah.
And so some of that stuff is healthy. I don't mind at all. Look, I want to back up because I don't think there's a single comic out in Durango who gives a shit what I think about them. Honestly, I really don't think that. That's not the kind of crew we have. I will say this. I have booked a lot of comics on a lot of shows, like over the years. I mean, a lot. I think we've put on over 100 shows. I mean, like real good shows, you know, and like, and those are all my friends. Like I've booked all those comics, you know what I'm saying, on all those shows. So all I want to say is like I've been booked twice. I mean, just as a ratio.
wow.
And so I've never. Like I headlined one time at the Underground when I first started, I think in like 2016 or something like that. And I'm trying to think of another time where somebody put me on a show. Maybe Elliot. The last time was Elliot asked me to come guest host up or do a guest spot at Moe's.
That was a good show, dude.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
So all I guess I'm saying is like selfishly as a comic of like just because I'm booking a show doesn't mean I don't want to do gigs anymore.
Okay.
Right.
And like
That's good to know.
Yeah, and
That
like
is good to know.
for
I mean,
sure,
'cause-
Because I just don't want the comics to, because there's been a little bit of tension and like people thinking I'm like whatever, and it's like I want to create opportunities for everybody.
Sure.
And I want to get opportunities out of that, but I still want to do comedy. I don't want to just be a producer.
Well, good, man.
This is
That's
where it
good.
started.
But,
right?
yeah.
Just getting on stage.
But because I have a background in business and marketing, and I know how to build it a bit for everybody, to where like I'm not gonna get anybody's way. I'm not gonna do anything anybody wants to do. But little things like this album or doing the next best comic competition, these are all opportunities that I'm trying to establish for our scene. You know what I mean? Like when we have comics come in and do guest judging, like Kate's getting gigs from that.
Right.
Fuck
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Which is awesome.
Right.
And so all I want is just like for people to understand is like I'm in it for the best interests of everybody. And am I going to benefit from that? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm only doing it because I believe in the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody's a part of that whole thing.
Right.
Like everybody. So if you're not on the album, like you're gonna be on the next one. You know what I mean? And I just want
Keep
everybody,
working hard. If you're not on
show,
the album, work harder.
you're gonna be on the next show. And
No,
like I've
not
had
like in a
people,
bad-
you know, maybe they missed the announcement on the Facebook group. And so they end up hitting me up like right before the show. Can I get on the show?
Right.
And if I have to tell them no, maybe they might be mad at me for a week or so. But then they realize like, oh no, somebody canceled. You're on the show, and they're like, oh cool.
Right.
And so it's funny how like instantly it can turn from like Wes is a dick to Wes is a pretty nice guy because somebody canceled and let me on the show.
I don't see how anybody could call you a dick for
That makes me feel better.
for making an album that's gonna showcase our town.
You just-
Dude, like I said a minute ago, if I like
Keep messing with
this
his
just
Yeah.
it just motivates me to try to get on the next album. You know what I mean? It doesn't give me any ill. I'm new, and I'm aware that I'm new. A lot of comics have only been doing it a year or two, and then there's others that have been doing it a lot longer, and they deserve to go up and showcase.
Yeah, and honestly, some of it is even just like, I mean, speaking of new, like I mean, last year at the Next Best Comic, Tyrell, it was like his maybe 5th or 6th time to do comedy.
Right. I
He
know.
just comes out and crushes, and I'm like, dude, pay your dues, my ass.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If they like you, they
Right,
like you.
Some
right.
people are naturally funny.
Yeah, and just have
Yeah,
it.
but you still got to pay your dues.
Yeah, you still got to pay your dues, but I mean, like you have that knack, and like you're gonna get on shows. You know, I mean,
Right.
there's a
for
guy in
sure.
every scene
He's
where
killing.
he's leapfrogging everybody, and they're looking around going, "What the fuck, man? I've been featuring for 6 months, and why is this guy?" Well, because he's really funny, he's
Right.
really exceptional, and you're gonna let those guys steal a base. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big deal. Just like with Elliot, like I'm so supportive of Elliot because he grinds and works.
He's a grinder,
and he cares. But he also he cares about his comedy career.
He's also just so funny, dude.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's worked on it. Like when he started off, he's always had great jokes. But I think he'll be the first one to tell you when he very first started, his stage presence was a little lacking because he was like 19 or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so just like it only took him, I mean, no time, but his stage presence comes around.
It's powerful
and
now.
Like the next thing you know, it's like, I mean, we've watched it with each other. You know what I'm saying? Like we've all kind of seen each other grow up in comedy, and you're seeing the ones who like really love it and care about it and are dedicated to it are like getting really, really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's just like when you were on Little League softball team, like the kid that stays after and takes BP, like he's going to be the best hitter on the team.
Yes, sure. Right. Yeah.
And so I love to see that. And I tell people all the time, like if I'm in producer mode, you know, that's what I'm working on, and we're going to have some opportunities.
Yeah.
But, like, there'll come a time when I'm going to record an album, and I'll put together a little tour, and I'll take a few people, and, like, yeah, then it'll be about me. It'll be, like, my time to, like, put my comedy out there and see what happens.
Right.
But now is not that time. Now is the time to, like, build this scene.
Grind,
and get it really healthy, like, more open mics like you guys are doing, and just different things like that we can bring onto the...
Absolutely.
Bring onto the scene. So hopefully everybody understands what I'm saying about the album and
I think they will
be supportive of it. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Oh, Tyrell, you guys weren't at the show on Saturday, huh? Kate's show?
No, I had to work.
All right. So there was these two people from Texas, obviously, and they sat right up front, and everybody struggled with them. Zoe Claire.
Were they heckling the whole time?
The woman wanted to be part of every fucking word that was said.
My God.
And made it very clear and was yelling and putting her hands up. So Zoe did really good with her, you know, just like played to her, yeah, girl, you know, and just kind of played off of her. And then it eventually was like, all right, you really need to stop talking. And then Tyrell struggled with them because I don't know.
They just were so distracting, you mean?
Just annoying fucking Texans that were obviously
interact with them?
He did, but it was very short, blunt, just like, you guys are the worst people to be in the front row right now. And then would be like, go back to his story. And then be like, I'm trying to tell a story, you know? And then go back to his story. But
I hate this shit.
Ryan was the best. And he's like, thinking about the past, different decisions. He's like, if I could make one decision different tonight, you two wouldn't have got tickets. And then went on with his.
Wow.
And they still didn't get the fucking hint. And then Kate burned them to the ground, and it was awesome.
Good.
They interrupted her for 20 fucking minutes.
She's really good. I've seen her deal with some hecklers pretty well. Like the Strater even
dropped a bomb, and the whole room was like, finally.
Yes.
Finally.
Oh, yeah, she's awesome.
Because the people around them were like, will you please stop? You know what I mean? And then she spilt the chick's beer that was next to her because she was flailing her.
What?
Dude, she was causing a goddamn problem.
Like a fucking rodeo.
And then Kate finally shut him up. But the show was supposed to be 8 to 10, right? It ended at 9.
Yeah. It ended at 9?
Every single person cut their shit short because they were tired of it. Tyrell was like, I don't even remember my last story. That's me. Peace. You know what I mean? And
that's another problem with a DIY scene is like we don't have the luxuries that big city clubs have, like crowd control.
They have,
you know, the in that case, security or bouncer would have come and removed those people in any other club.
Yeah.
And so that's just one of those drawbacks of like being a small town, and like even if you could throw them out, you wouldn't want to because they're going to come back to the next show and or tell their friends or whatever. So it's just always a hard thing. You're really relying on the comics.
I was really mean to hecklers when I first started, but I was getting heckled every show.
The first time I ever did comedy at that joke down, I did my first joke and got a little laugh and was like, okay, this is gonna work. And then I said my second setup, or a tag joke or something, and the guy repeated what I said, like real blah blah blah. And I said, dude, shut the fuck up. Just went on with my jokes. Nice. And then I looked at the tape later, and I did pretty well and all that. And I told my wife, I was like, I think if I'm gonna do this, I think I did okay.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't tell the guy to shut the fuck up.
Oh, right.
It's a harsh first tackle.
10 seconds in, you probably shouldn't. The minute somebody says one little thing, like, shut the fuck up, I'm doing jokes. It was pretty harsh. But the funniest story with that is I get second place that year. It's the first time ever doing it. I get second place, which means nothing at the joke down.
No, that's still pretty fucking cool.
But so the winner got a trip to Cancun. The second place got a $25 gift card. There's a big gap there. So now I'm determined to come back next year and win it, right?
Yeah.
So I go off and I have a whole year to write another 5 minutes. So now it's all original. It's really good. It's punchy. I come back the second year, and just murder, get first place. And
they changed the prize.
Changed the prize. Now the first prize is $25. Second prize is like $10.
Blew their wallet on the Cancun trip.
Yeah, they lost their timeshare or whatever, the owners or whatever.
Wow.
But I was more psyched to get first place in that than anything I've probably ever done in my life.
Yeah, dude.
For whatever reason, even though it was just a ridiculous joke of a thing. It's not a real, I don't know. It's all just about how well can you herd drunk people, and
that's comedy, dude. Baby.
I stood out line for 10 minutes this past Snowdown for to just try to get in to sign up, and I couldn't even get in time. I mean, because sign-ups cut off at quarter till. I'm
really anti-joke down now because
it looked like a shit show.
We just had a couple of bad experiences, and then I had a bad experience with some of the people in there, and I'm at the point now, to be blunt, where I feel like that is an insult to our comedy scene.
I agree with that.
And so if somebody's going to do a joke competition during Snowdown, I'm pretty sure it should be somebody that's already doing comedy on a regular basis.
Right.
Because that place just does not facilitate comedy at all. And what it does is it embarrasses our local joke tellers, and then it falsely promotes local comedy as if that's what it is to a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't know. And so they leave thinking that drunk Johnny college kid who's the first time has ever do comedy in his life is like a representation of our scene.
Right.
Because all the comedians were at work during signups.
Well, the dude that won this year is not in the scene at all. None of us have ever met him.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, imagine if they had a Snowdown bluegrass jam competition. And the only bluegrass musicians they let in were people who've never played a banjo.
3 of us.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
If none of the bluegrass players showed up to that, would it be a legitimate
it's a shit
competition?
Show. Yeah, it's just a fucking joke.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think in a way NBC4C is our answer to that to a degree because we enjoy healthy, fun competition as long as it's constructive and I think it can give people stuff to aspire to. If you say, I got 3rd place, next year I'm getting 1st. Right. Or I got 6th place, next year I'm getting 5th, or whatever. It gives you a gauge of look, this is a very objective business. You can tell by the crowd. They're either going to laugh or they're not. It's not my place to tell you you're good or bad at it.
Right.
What we're going to do is have objective judges saying, look, we all saw the crowd's reaction.
Right.
Our job is to tell you why they reacted that way.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
Right,
we're not judging your comedy. We're judging the audience's reaction to your comedy.
Right.
That's fair.
And so last year, I basically gave the judges these parameters. I said, be funny, be funny for the crowd, and try to be constructive with your criticism. And they were mean as hell. They nearly made some of our people quit comedy, and I'm like, fuck, that's not what we wanted this to be.
That was so
and
fun.
a lot of it was my fault because it's trial and error, and I'm having them stand up there and basically get roasted by these professionals.
Fuck yeah.
And it's just a very uncomfortable.
I got roasted hard,
dude. You did, and a couple of people did. And
I could take it because when I got into this, I knew I'd have to have thick skin.
Yeah, and you're a great guy that way, and you're if every comic was like you, dude, honestly, it'd be an amazing world. Because you're just so grateful and humble, and it's so good.
Appreciate it.
But no, it was people who were, I don't know, really good comics that just maybe had a bad night or the crowd didn't relate or whatever, and then they just got burned, and they were just fuck. And I'm like, no. Don't take it this way. And I'm really trying to but at the same time, I want the crowd to be engaged. I want them to think it's funny, all these things.
Right.
It was a hard thing to balance. It was like a juggling act. I want my friends to still talk to me after this is over.
Right.
I want these traveling comics to think we have a cool scene and that we got real talent down here. It's a lot to have going on. And so this year I'm kind of simplifying it, and just the parameters are going to be look, just what I said, your job as a judge is to interpret the audience's reaction to this material.
Sure, yeah.
That's a good.
And so if they didn't laugh at a certain point, we all know that. We saw that.
Yeah.
And just let me know why they didn't, so that as a comic, I can go back to the thing. Being funny is no longer the paramount goal of these judges because they were throwing our comics under the bus for a laugh. And that's the part I didn't like because, the crowd loves it and they think it's funny. But we don't need that now at where we're at,
Okay.
And you're just not tight enough, and you don't want your heroes telling you dude, you come across like a scuzzo, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what? I've been cultivating this image for years, and it could be very devastating is my point.
Yeah.
And so we're really going to the comics and saying, look, if you're going to judge, interpret the crowd and then be constructive about here's why the crowd probably took it that way, and here's maybe something you could change to make it better, make it land harder or whatever. And I think that'll be a better.
Sounds good, man.
Honestly, and also we're not going to have the comics stand out there and take it. Like, honestly, when they get done with their set, they're going to go off stage.
Oh, really?
And then
that was the weird part. Did you go and watch it?
Yeah.
You just have to stand there while these guys roast you for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it was last year.
Yeah, I get different reactions. I asked Kate. She was like, they were pretty okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, ask Elliot.
And I stupidly thought by giving the competitor a mic as well that they could banter and it'd be funny. But instead, like
some of them got real defensive.
They got defensive. And so, well, not even, of course, some of them got defensive, but even the ones who were just playfully trying to banter it back and forth in a defensive, playful way, just came off looking like a sore loser and would get it even harder.
True. That's not good.
And I just thought, oh my God, all this is backfiring.
Yeah.
Like, this is not what we wanted. Holy shit, abort. So that was a weird thing to kind of figure out. But it's like, hey, we're done with that. First year's behind us. Like, now we know. And like, this year is going to be really constructive. It's going to be really fun. I think all the comics who participate, we're going to try to get 24. We're going to see how many people submit, but I think all 24 of those comics are going to get a huge advance in their career out of competing in it.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Because even if you get deadline, if you're the first one voted off, like, I promise that criticism you get in that show will change every open mic you do for the rest of your life.
It'll improve your set.
Because like, I used to think I could fly fish pretty good, and then I went and fished with like a professional fly fisherman and learned more in that one day than I had taught myself in years.
While failing.
Yeah. I thought I was good at snow skiing because I taught myself for growing up, and then I went and skied with a really good pro, and like, I realized I know nothing about how to snow ski.
Right.
Wow.
And it was the same with comedy. Like, I thought I was doing pretty good, and I always got laughs and never really bombed, and just like, this is pretty good, you know. And then perform with some really good comics, and was like,
that's how you do it.
Just, I'm so far. Like, I'm not even the same ballpark. Like, I'm down the street at a tire store.
That's why you get. I mean, I don't think I know of any circumstance where someone didn't have to pay their dues, because that's the only way to get to a professional level and to get comfortable up there, to do everything right, writing right, stage presence. Is to do it. You got to do it as often as you can, and that's why we wanted to start the other mic, because just one time a week is not enough.
That's right. You gotta perfect it out, and then come and put that into action at a competition or a bigger stage or somewhere where you can like get that validation from all that hard work.
Right.
Because just mic after mic after mic is fun, but eventually you need somewhere to go test all that.
Or if, say, a joke is consistently not working, you do it at the competition, you can find out why it hasn't been working. They'll tell you.
Yeah, and even
in
there,
a constructive, positive way, though, not with destroying you.
Sure. And I think even
that's what they did last year.
And even more helpful for Next Best Comic is that it's really for this. Look, if you take the time to work out a 5 or 10 minute set, or one of each even, be best.
Yeah.
Like, just like you've done, like, over the last year or two, like, you've really honed your act and like gotten good at it. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you watch yourself now versus when you started, it's just night and day, right?
Right.
And so now's the time where you can go get that kind of criticism, and your act goes from like good to great, or it goes from like good to like travel ready, or like festival ready, or like, you know what I mean? Or if you're already going to festivals like Elliot's doing, then that kind of feedback can take it to like headlining clubs or featuring in clubs. Or something like that. Like, it's always whatever level you're at is where we're going to be to make it. You know?
I know you can make it the next level. Yeah.
And that's partly how Tyrell got second place, is because the first show that he competed in, he made, it was discovered that it was like his 4th or 5th time to do stand-up. Right. And I think Christy Buckley was the judge at that time, and she was like freaking out about that, because that is a major accomplishment. He's that good early on. Right. So that's initially like this big boost where, he's obviously really talented because he's skipping through the system so fast.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like a young prospect in the minor leagues or whatever. You see him like just blazing through the minor leagues. You're like, oh, he's gonna be really good. Yeah. He spent 6 weeks in the minors, and he's already, So yeah, it's all relative to each comic, I
guess so. Yeah.
For me, I always had stage presence. I always could get up and get a laugh, but I wanted to do it too much on my terms, and I wanted to look cool while I was doing it, or I wanted to be more intellectually comedy instead of just doing Jim Carrey impressions like when I was a kid. Right. I wanted to redeem my silly, dumb 12-year-old self who just had no brain of his own, and give more voice to the new Wes that's like, feels like I have something to say and want to use comedy as an outlet for that. But then look at that material and say, yeah, but it's not funny, a lot of it. So just go with what's funny. And,
Yeah, right.
You know.
Number one, funny.
Yeah. Trying to
rule.
hone an act.
It's the only rule, they say.
Yeah.
Is to be funny.
So that's basically what I've learned from this podcast is honing an act. Fuck the comedians. Do it for the crowd. Try to hone something special and something like structured, you know? Like that's where I lack is I have a couple jokes that I throw into every set and I'm trying new stuff on every different set, but there's no real structure to anything I'm doing.
Yeah. So one thing I tell comics when they say like, how do I tie this in or how do I do a better structure or whatever, you know, if you can't figure that out, like if you don't see how your jokes connect, then the audience sure doesn't see.
Right.
For sure.
That's
you know, so like if somebody's making a list or if they're like, if they got some system on their hand or something like that shows them how to remember their jokes, the audience doesn't have that cheat sheet.
Uh-huh.
So how are they going to see the connection?
Paint that
like,
picture,
so in other words, don't use notes or anything like that to build your set. Like use the jokes themselves in
they got to tie into each other
and how they tie into each other.
Right.
The example I would use is like the set I'm doing now is about like my son selling cream pies in school.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like basically fit as many jokes into that story as possible. You know what I'm saying?
It's a good story, man.
Oh, thanks.
It's funny.
But I'm also gonna start off the set with like setting up who my son is. So there's a lot of jokes in there because I start with like saying he's like dating a girl named Barbara and this whole bit about how Barbara's an old lady name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or whatever. And so by the time I get into selling cream pies at school,
there's a picture of your son.
Yeah, and Barbara is now like a character in our lives.
Right.
So she can come into that story at any point, and people say, "Oh, great callback," or "This is a good structure," whatever. It's like, no. It's very easy to
make the connection.
Here's my son. Here's who he's dating. Here's what he's doing at school, and of course Barbara would know about
it. Gotta set it up properly.
Yeah, it's like your mind will naturally go back there when you're on stage if you write it that way.
Right.
The problem is we're writing joke 1, joke 2, joke 3, joke 4, joke 5, and then saying, now how can we connect these?
See,
they don't connect.
I
wrote them at different times.
I have a hard time writing jokes. I write a page.
Oh, good.
I write a fucking page of what I'm talking about.
Like free-flowing thoughts?
Pretty much. And between, like, instead of making sentences, it's just like thought, ... goes to this, ... You know what I mean? Just like where a break would be or whatever. So I'm like writing in jokes, but
that's good.
Full pages. Whereas I wish I had a little more of like, you saw Phil, just structured, really well-written, strong jokes. And they kind of tie in. Yeah. But not. Yeah, I'm more of a storyteller as a whole. Yeah.
Me too. And when I do a joke, like I'll get a concept for a joke. I'll show you my notes here. A lot of times I'll pull out my phone and just type it into like the notepad or whatever.
Right.
But it's like I'll have to set up a whole scenario because that's what I was thinking about. And like that's kind of what made it funny.
Right.
Like I was thinking about, like I used to work at a nursing home, right? But I wasn't I was just like a salesman for it or whatever. But anyway, I was just thinking about that when I was working one day, and I came up with this joke, and I didn't know how to write it as a joke. So this is what I wrote down. I said, I used to work at a nursing home. I did comedy there once, which is a total lie, but this is how I'm tracking it, to find the joke in it. I did comedy there once. The nurse told me the old people were like kids. Okay, so this pissed me off. Or she said, they're like kids, keep the jokes simple. Like, this offended me because I think old people are cooler than that, and like they're not like kids. I mean, they're smart,
intelligent.
That offended me. So I opened with singing. I said I'll treat them like kids. So I said, if you're happy and you can still get an erection, clap your hands or whatever. Like that's not a funny. I mean, that's a funny concept. Right. But I literally had to type all of that out
just to get to the
because if I would have typed, if you're happy and can still get an erection, clap your hands, I would look at that later and go,
what the fuck was I talking about?
Yeah. So I'm gonna write all that shit out so I can get to that one joke. Now, when I actually do that joke on stage, it probably won't be that same scenario.
Right.
But at least I remember what the punchline was and how I got there. Been some just bad ones. This one. My son is dating a girl named Cindy, trying to figure out how he landed a 38-year-old bank teller. I changed Cindy to Barbara, and it works way better.
Barbara's funnier.
Because Cindy's like, oh, I know some young Cindys,
Right.
Barbara, no, they're all old. It works.
This is good. What else can I mention real quick about the Comedy Showcase Durango stuff? Next Best Comic submissions are open. So if you're a comic in the area, please log on to the website and put in your info. It's real easy, just fields to fill out. And if you don't have anything, or if you're missing something, just send it anyway or put whatever you can in there. David, we might talk about setting up some kind of sign-up sheet at the ranch for folks who want to submit, but they don't want to do it through the computer, because I know that can be confusing, and like a lot of people get stuck on there. They're like, I don't have a headshot, or I don't have a bio.
You want me to
and they
set
get
that
scared
up
off.
tonight?
Yeah, we might just do like a little a sign-up sheet or something and print it off, and then when people are signing up to do a set at the mic, maybe just mention like, hey, are you going to be in the competition? And if they aren't, like, try to sign them up.
Right.
And tell them what it's about and all that. But because we were taking 24 people, but it would suck if we had like, 24 people sign up and those were our 24.
Right.
Like we really want to try to have like 100 people sign up, and then we only can take 24.
Right.
I think last year when we did it, we were taking like 18 we took 12, and I think we had like 20 people submit. So we had to turn away 8 people.
Nice.
And so
Makes it exclusive.
And I thought, man, we've grown a lot. So maybe this year we could do like 2 shows of 12.
That'd be dope.
And then we're going to do 2 shows a month with Group A and Group B, and then bring them together at the end. Another difference with this year's Next Best Comic is we won't have the head-to-head format anymore. So before, because that was really confusing. People thought maybe it was a roast, or they weren't really sure how to approach the head-to-head thing.
Right.
And essentially what we were doing was pairing up comics to compete for the audience's applause. So you would come out and do 5 minutes, the audience would clap, and then David would come out and do 5 minutes, and the audience clap, and then the judges would decide which of the 2 of you deserve to move on.
Right.
And so we paired people up pretty randomly, and then just said like, y'all go see who's better. And so we had people like had started like 2 months before, going against people who've been doing it forever.
That's what happened.
That's a high seed, low seed situation.
It was
just trying to get them out of there.
Yeah. But at the time we didn't know any of that.
Right.
So we're just like taking people and saying, oh, cool, your video looked fine, like whatever. But like I never even met that guy before that David was going up against.
5 years in, dude.
Yeah, we didn't know any of that, and actually it was his agent who submitted him.
Seriously?
Yeah, so we didn't even. I had no.
And I was
text
2
or
months
email.
in, dude, doing it once a
And
week.
Kate still beat that dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Go
Yeah.
Kate McLaughlin.
He was good. He had a better.
He was good.
His best set of the competition was against David. Though.
Sick.
Yeah, because he didn't know what the hell it was.
Destroyed me, dude.
And honestly, like he wasn't down with it because he had to travel so far to get here. That he was just going to do the one show and then go.
Right.
And so he gave it his all with David, and then thought that would be it. And then when he found out he moved through, he was like, well, da, da, da. And I was like, come on,
You're here.
You can't not come now.
Well, no, it's a month later.
Oh.
The next
So
show,
it's a
and he
month
lived like
later.
8 hours away in Arizona.
But what ended up happening was our comedy scene is so badass that like he got to know all the other comics. And like we
we hung
showed
out
him
all
a good
night that night,
and
dude.
I think he came to a garden party actually we were at a party with watching the Kentucky Derby the next day, and he came to watch that with our friends, and like really hung out in Durango for the weekend, made a weekend of it, and like fell in love with Durango.
That happens.
Which happens, and so that's why he came back and ended up going through with the competition.
Right.
But once he was in it for the long haul, he just kind of got tired of it and started mailing it in. So like literally, his best set was against David
funny.
Oakley.
Shout out to Chris.
But
Chris Gillespie.
Chris Gillespie,
nice.
and I think is he down in Mississippi now?
I think he is. Yeah.
So we
I
got
think he's in
that Gulf Coast hookup for sure.
Yeah,
We
no
go on
doubt.
tour.
I still see photos that he posts of shows all the time. So
Yeah, he's
so
still
that's good.
He's still in it.
He's
grinding.
hilarious, man.
It's
He's
exciting
fun to hang out with too.
Yeah.
It wasn't boring at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
It's exciting times in the Durango comedy scene. You guys have that mic. I wasn't able to. I had family in town and all that, but you guys had a mic on down the rabbit hole. How did that go?
Yeah. So okay, we did a trial run on the 15th. It went great. A lot of the people that were already there just eating, you saw, like they stayed and chilled, and they were so receptive. I mean, keep in mind, we had the shittiest PA system I've ever spoken through.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it took them till like the second to last comic
To fix it.
Oh.
And I happened to be the last comic.
Okay.
Like, so it worked for me, and it worked for whoever went right before me. But everybody else like had to kind of like the crowd had to struggle to hear, but they were still cracking up. Like they were invested.
They were
you could tell.
they were like leaning
They
forward.
were leaning
just-
in, yeah. And the general manager this whole time, Tony, he he was watching to see if he thinks he wants to bring us back. And after the show, he took us up to the office and he's like, yeah.
Sweet.
He's like, next week I have a prior obligation. So tomorrow night, we're not going to have one at Down the Rabbit Hole. But starting March 29th at Down the Rabbit Hole, every Friday, there'll
That's
be
this Friday, guys.
And it'll be from 9 to 11, not 8 to 10.
That is so great.
That's a good idea.
And
9 to 11 is better.
We're going to have an open mic, and then when we can, have a headliner at the end.
Sure.
I would love it if you would.
Oh, thanks, man.
No, seriously.
Dude.
I was actually going to mention that before you brought up that thing earlier, but
I'm sorry that I brought that up actually now. I look about it in retrospect because it sounds like I'm saying,
No,
you guys don't ever book me, and I always book everybody. That's not what I meant for it to sound like.
Yeah, but no, but keep in mind, there's not very many people to. You
that's what
are
I meant.
the one that books
That's what
people.
I meant.
Yeah,
that's why I feel like such a dick.
now
Because people are like, what the fuck are we going to book you on, Wes?
Yeah, but no, it makes
Down the
sound
rabbit
like a
hole,
dick.
bro.
But yeah,
Headliner.
But yeah,
It's,
we can do that now.
That's sweet. No, I'm just excited that there's another mic and we have that trifecta Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is so critical
That's
if we're going to
great.
bring people to town that want to make a weekend of it.
Especially at the weekends when the Strater's happening, man.
Yeah.
That'll be that'll be great.
No, it's going to be huge. And same with Starlight or whatever, like these guys from Fort Collins,
Yeah.
like to be able to give them some multiple stage time.
Sure, yeah.
All those kinds of things. Plus, at the end of Next Best Comic, which is going to be done in the end of July, we're going to take a little time off, and then we come back at the end of August will be our 3-day festival or 4-day festival. Okay, so we started this in Cortez the first year. Second year we did it in Durango, which was last year. When we did it in Durango last year, it was like we did the Thursday night, Irish Embassy and the El Rancho thing, 2 for 1, and then we did the Strater Saturday night or Friday night and Saturday night, and it was pretty good. It was okay, but still not a ton of shows. Not enough for a real festival.
Right.
And so this year we want to do that same thing, but all day Saturday we're going to have different shows, and all day Friday we're going to have different shows, plus like workshops and different things like that, like writing workshops or whatever, so that our traveling comedians who are here for the festival can also help us like get better at writing.
That'd be awesome, dude.
That kind of stuff.
Dude, that's
I'd
perfect.
be into that for sure.
And then I'll also be open to the public. So anybody that's wanting to get into comedy, like the festival would be a great time to come because there's workshops and shit like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so, different ticketed shows, and then there'll be free shows, and then we'll sell like a wristband to get into all the shows, because there'll be like after parties and things like that, and pre-parties and stuff that you'll have to have the wristband to get into or be a performer or whatever. And so that's going to be something really fun at the end of August. But if we don't have like these open mic locations, then it's just going to be again like and then the ranch and then the Strater, and then everybody goes like now it's like Down the Rabbit Hole will be a participant in that festival.
Yeah,
totally.
And the same with Mo, the Starlight. Like
Yes.
it's so neat to get like when we have a festival over 4 days that like a part of downtown Durango is like really devoted to it, and you can go around and sure enough there's comedy. You're just looking around town there's comedy everywhere. That's gonna be like that's
Just need
the
a lot
dream.
of posters, man.
And like Justin and I've dreamt a long time about seeing like the Four Corners Comedy Festival like banner over the main avenue.
Yeah.
like,
That
the
would be
banner.
awesome, dude.
Or Santa Rita. So like we're just working toward that. So
Good, man.
that's gonna be at the end after the Next Best Comic. So basically, if anybody's wondering about money or whatever, it's like all the money we make from our shows goes back into comedy. And so like I don't pay myself anything ever. Like I take that back. Like when the fire happened, like we were late on a couple of bills, and I had to dip into my comedy fund to like $100 for some rent or here and there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't take money. I don't pay myself a salary or anything like that. Like we just literally reinvest it all into the next show
That's
or bringing
awesome,
somebody
man.
in or whatever. And so like that's how we paid for last year's festival. This year will be the same thing. We get like 10 hotel rooms for the traveling comics. I mean, that shit adds up, and like the theater rentals and blah blah blah. But so this year, Next Best Comic, and then the festival, and then but the album to start April 27th.
Awesome.
Live recording.
Awesome.
It's gonna be pretty fun.
Yeah,
Fucking
you
excited,
sell
man.
tickets to that?
Huh?
You can sell tickets to that?
Yeah, but they won't be very much because we want the audience to be like super on our side.
Totally.
I mean, I would love to do it for free if I could, but I just don't think because the theater rental and
Gotta pay
all
Scooter.
that, I gotta pay. It just if it didn't cost us anything to put on, if it was just the expense of recording the album, it would be fine. But we got to pay everybody in that theater, like Jason and all those guys come and set up the chairs and
Oh, for sure.
and so it's like I got to make that money back at least. And so we'll probably just charge like whatever the album is going to cost we'll charge that. I think it's $12, and we'll charge $12 to get in because you'll get to hear it live recorded and be on it.
Nice.
And then that way we'll have money to get it printed out and get it ready to sell during the Next Best Comic. And man, I'm excited. It's gonna be a fun time. It's gonna be a fun summer.
I'm stoked.
That's super fucking
Really
exciting,
good.
man.
Yeah, and we want to get once Phil gets back, we got to sit down with Phil and you, Brian, and Comedy Showcase Durango talk about how we can sponsor this here podcast.
Yeah.
That'd be great if y'all did that.
There's a few great podcasts in town. You guys always talk about the Whiskey Reel and Unreal to Real. Those guys are great. I was on Unreal to Real a couple years ago. I was just starting out, and same thing with you guys. Like, it's just so cool to have different forums supporting comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the whole reason I'm on this podcast is because we did that show March 2nd, I believe. Drop-in show at the Strater, and after it was over, I was online, and somebody had commented. I think maybe on
That was Farrell.
Yeah.
That was my girl Farrell. Shout out. She's listening.
That's awesome. She said that. She said like wouldn't have known about this for weekend podcast.
I remember that blew my mind when I heard when I saw that. I was
me
like,
too.
Wow.
And so
Goddamn right.
I was like,
we got power, son.
Phil and Brian, dude.
That's a very
It's powerful.
good tool that she did there. That was a very good thing that she did because
Yes, it was.
It turned me on to you guys where I thought, oh, here's maybe a portal where we could slip information about the comedy scene to the public and the masses at large, you know, when they're not at a comedy show or if they're not on our Facebook page or whatever. Like, here's another avenue to like get the information out there. And if you guys are so supportive of comedy that way, like, we should totally return the love. And so we should do something like that. And that gets my wheels, like, as an entrepreneur, it just gets my wheels turning of like, well, fuck, there's all these great podcasts in Durango, and like these guys want to like take it more seriously and like do other stuff with it, and like you know, so we should have a good conversation. I'm sure we could work some of that stuff out.
I'm excited to work with you guys, man. And just
good.
Dave, once I met Dave, and Dave was like, just come to the mic, see if you like it. And then a couple times, and then his wife sat me down and she's like, so what are you scared of? Like, there's 12 drunks at the ranch. Like, worst case scenario.
She put it in just perspective to where you, dude.
And then Dave kept coming back up, and he's like, you know, there's not a mic next week, right? But then just walk away.
That's
like,
awesome.
well, fuck.
I think your camera died, bro.
Yeah, it did.
That's okay.
We should probably wrap this up anyway.
Okay.
I've been trying to wrap it up, but
dude.
Well, I want you to get it all out there too.
I was trying to say so much that you guys would have to cut out all that shit I was saying.
We're not cutting shit.
No, dude.
But I know you won't.
It was.
That's cool.
I thought it went well.
It was really good. Dave fucking killed it as a co-host.
Oh,
Hell
thank
yeah,
you.
Dude,
dog.
you totally killed it.
Oh, thank you, man.
You're the greatest.
I appreciate it.
I'm trying to talk Dave into doing his own.
Yeah, you should. Well, I want to do a couple, like, you know, I used to do a radio show and stuff, and like was in radio for a long time and all that, and ever since podcasting came out, I've had people tell me like, dude, why don't you do it?
Yeah.
Like, people from high school be like, dude, have you heard about podcasting? Well, why don't you have one?
You are a chatty Cathy.
It's super chatty.
You could definitely have a
but
podcast.
I have this like NPR ear where I'm such a storyteller that I want background audio. I want like sound effect. I want to like tell the most complete story. Like, I hate podcasts like this one generally because I don't like to hear dudes just talking for 2 hours.
Right.
I'd rather like tell me a story, you know? Yeah. But having said that, recently I've been listening to podcasts where it's just dudes talking for 2 hours. I don't know why.
You can learn from
broke the seal, dog.
Yep, and you just get into some of them. But even ones like How I Built This or like business podcasts that I like from NPR or whatever, it's formatted in a way where it's like it keeps my attention.
Yeah.
And I'm so ADD or whatever. But anyway, my point of all that was to say I would love to do my own podcast or a couple different versions of some as part of this whole movement to like build out the scene.
There you go.
Because honestly, like, we're bringing businesses in now.
Dude, what if we did like a live one at the Strater, like once
we
a
talked
month,
about that,
or even at El Rancho or down wherever. But a live podcast, that'd be fun for our small town, I think.
I was actually talking to Brian and Philip about that, and I think.
Oh, you mean for the event?
Well, just for whatever, you know, because honestly, I think for me, like if we book a big comic, and sometimes it's easier to get them to come just do a podcast than like a big show.
Yeah.
You know, they'll come down and sit and chat with you.
Get them, pair them. You know?
Yeah.
You can do the podcast and a show.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so we've definitely talked about it. And there's a lot of cool formats like Kill Tony or whatever, like different live show formats that work well on podcasts. So yeah, we're excited about all that stuff. We want to get a dedicated space soon for comedy, and we want to have a dedicated space for podcasting and all of that stuff. Oh, real quick, I do want to announce because I'm pretty sure I can announce this. We did get sponsorship from the TV and radio stations.
Yeah.
I was telling you about this. So that's really cool. 99X and The Point will be doing comedy stuff with us during Next Best Comic and for the festival, which is great.
Huge.
Yeah, it's great. We're gonna be able to bring comics in there and chat with them and make jokes, and then the same with Durango TV. We'll be able to provide them content from our shows, so it's not going to be like your jokes going out there to the masses. It'll be like the judges and the banter and that kind of stuff that we'll edit up into little segments and put on there. But yeah, that's really exciting time. So if you own a business and you're listening and you want to get involved with the comedy scene, we have these great sponsor partners now to where you're not just going to be on some cheesy like comedy poster for the Strater. It's like you're going to be on TV and radio and podcasts and there's a lot of platforms now to where by sponsoring comedy, like your brand will go out a lot of places.
Definitely.
A lot, not just the comedy avenues, but that's exciting because like that's how we all start making a living off of these things that we like to do.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Because nobody's going to pay us to do it, but these businesses will pay for that value of having these listeners. I want to come back and do another one of these when Phil is here.
Definitely.
And because I want to try to like see if we can boost the listenership of this through through Comedy Showcase Durango's network, and like with the YouTube video and all that. But like really like fucking blast it and see how many people we can get to subscribe.
Get some more listeners.
Yeah.
Green light.
They actually just doubled last week. So
did you?
Yeah.
That's great.
Good for you, man.
That's great.
My Kate and we had you last week and
that's great.
It seemed to help and just
sweet.
That's great. There's always a point where I think early on in a podcast where it has that big,
growth.
This is more like.
Dude, we've been going up like 5, 10, 12. That and then this last week it was just like boom, double it.
That's good.
It's exciting and it's reassuring. It boosts your ego a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, cool, man. Thanks so much for having. Plug wise, next show that I got going is that April 27th. I'm pretty sure that April 27th live comedy album. We'll put out more information on that. ComedyShowcaseDurango.com is where to apply for the Next Best Comic competition.
Awesome.
Also, Comedy Showcase Durango on Facebook has some information, and we share like the shows that these guys are doing, and we try to, we have a secret group there on Facebook where we try to change the information. Sometimes details are left off, like who all's hosting is be shared down the rabbit hole. David's like, "Where's the love?" I'm like, "We didn't know you're co-hosting this. Sorry."
That's hilarious.
But that's just bad communication or whatever. But yeah, so
I didn't really get mad. I know.
But yeah, dude, that's it. ComedyShowcaseDurango.com. Thanks so much for having me. You guys are awesome.
Sorry.
What's up?
Is this released
Wednesday?
6 days from now, Wednesday?
Yep.
Okay. Well, in that case, I wanted to promote the Down the Rabbit Hole March 29th.
Yep. This Friday.
That's
9
this
p.m.
Friday.
Yeah, this Friday.
As
well as El Rancho this Thursday.
Every Thursday at El Rancho. And Down the Rabbit Hole now coming every Friday.
Yeah. And before I get off, I did want to say, like, David Oakley is awesome at hosting the ranch.
Dude,
I love that room. Like,
I love it too.
I can't go there a lot because it's a Thursday night. I'm a family man. It's like kind of late.
Right.
But when I'm there, I always have a great time. Dude, and it's a great recruiting ground for new comics.
Last Thursday was fucking crazy.
It was good.
Dude, I've never seen Ryan MC so loose in my life.
Yeah.
He was so loose. I loved it.
That was awesome. See, Ryan MC is going to be gone on April 27th. He was one of the early guys in the scene that I have a ton of respect for, and was one of my first calls about the album. And he's going to be out of town, I think. So I want that on the record that he was one of the first calls.
He was a contender.
Because some of those guys have just we've back in the days, like we were getting ran out of Durango Brewing and just trying to get a scene going, and so I don't know, to see where it's at now, it's like it's so cool, man. It's so rewarding.
Dude.
I'm proud of all these guys, and I love them all.
You guys. You guys started it.
But
it's here because of you.
But man, so many people move away and it cycles through, and like at any point it could just, you think it's gonna die, and then you see new people like Brian and Philip come on the scene.
Absolutely.
I don't know, just there's always like, just when you think there's no hope, then the new crop of people come through and you're like, it's gonna be in good hands for at least another year or two, and like hopefully you guys like move on to bigger and better things, and this becomes just kind of a transition ground, a springboard to bigger and better things. And I know that's gonna happen for Elliot for sure, and
absolutely.
And So yeah, and eventually we'll have a dedicated space here for comedy. I mean, I really want to own my own club here someday. I mean, not really a comedy club, but
that'd
like
be dope though if it was a real
comedy bar, like a place for comedy. Just so that we can be that like actual
that spot,
proving ground. Between Denver and L.A. You got to have somewhere to kind of cut your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be awesome.
And I feel like I got in at a super fortunate time.
You totally did.
Met Dave, and I was just like, there's all these mics. This is awesome. And he's like, yeah, I'm starting a new one next month. Like, oh, shit.
But honestly, if somebody's listening and says, well, how the hell does Brian and Philip get to just get into the comedy scene and like get with David and Wes?
Because I have a podcast and comedians want to talk to me.
That's right.
But if you don't.
But I want to put it this way.
Yeah.
You're putting your shit out there.
Right.
And like most people live in a walled up world, with like, they don't want to let anybody in, they don't want to expose themselves, they don't want to be vulnerable, they don't want to, just afraid.
Right.
And like, if you've been thinking about doing a podcast, if you've been thinking about doing comedy, if you've been thinking about writing a novel or putting out a rap album, fucking do it.
Try it.
Now is the time.
Yeah.
Because somebody somewhere is going to hear that. Somebody somewhere is going to see it. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So like, just start putting your shit out there, people, because people are waiting to find it. Like I was waiting to hear your podcast, didn't know it existed,
right?
And if you had never put it out there, I wouldn't be here, So like, I just want to encourage people to like do your art, do the things you want to do, put it out there, don't be afraid. All right, that's it.
Right. Fuck yeah, right, Dave. On Twitter, Dave O Laughs.
That's right.
Dave Oakley on Facebook. Word.
See us at the mics, open mics.
Yeah, come. Yeah, Ranch every Thursday and Down the Rabbit Hole every Friday.
Right.
Check the Durango Comedy Showcase
and
Durango
also,
Facebook page.
Elliot has one at the Starlight Lounge, usually every Saturday. Also,
yeah. Word.
Yeah,
Starlight
I
Lounge.
can't forget that. I'm just always working, so I do tend to forget about it.
Right.
I don't remember the date on that one. We can look it up maybe, but it's.
I think it's.
I think it's every Saturday.
Before this airs, maybe.
Oh yeah.
So maybe before this airs.
The headliners.
Probably a great show that just was though.
We just had a great fucking show. There's Starlight Lounge.
I'm on Instagram, like Wes Stein Comedy, I think, or Wes Stein Comedy.
Nice.
I need more Instagram followers, and because we don't have a Comedy Showcase Durango presence that much,
right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff I point to when I'm showing analytics or whatever.
Sweet.
Got it.
But otherwise, like Comedy Showcase Durango Facebook page is like, I think we're close to 1,200 followers or something.
Yeah, you are.
Nice.
Which is nice because whether you guys are like interested in our content or not, if you're just wanting to support the scene, that's what we use to get sponsors.
Analytics, yeah.
So yeah, if you're down with that content, we just put out a funny video of Josh Blue, and we put up all the posters for all the local comedy shows. So it's a good like, because it's a good follow, because you're gonna get all the info.
Yeah, totally.
And all that stuff. So. Yeah.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, alright. Yeah. I wouldn't let them catch me dead or alive. I survive. I'm taking all my people on a new ride. Do right, that's good business. Talking about more than riches, but rappers keep blowing up just like the 4th of July. Said, oh my, that record label must be out of their mind. I know that their flowing ain't better than mine. Yeah, like they pulled this cat right out of the sky. Yo, I'm tired of these magicians. They tricking the sinner's eyes. I keep trucking, pushing around in my bucket. Coming up, I'm 25, and man, I'm feeling real lucky. Got something big on the way. I keep that radio bumping all season. Ain't no reason that them stations give me no love, and I love it. And I give it all to the public. I'm busting, I'm running, I'm jumping around. All of the dumbest prima donnas. Did they forget the date and come up from nothing? I want nothing of it. The front and man, I'm pushing my buttons, okay? I'm just feeling yep, alright. Yep, alright. Yep, alright. Yep, alright. Yeah, alright. Yeah, alright. Alright. Yeah, feel alright. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. No doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. I said ain't no doubt about it, I'm gon' do this always. Wait.